Hello and welcome to Six Part. Today I'm going to start a new series. What if Deku had the hollow quirk? If you enjoy this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
Izuku Midoriya, then 6 years old, was scared when he followed Katsuki Bakugo and his friends into the nearby woods of Musudafu. The older children claimed that the woods were haunted, but it didn't matter. Katsuki was still strong, even though he was no longer the boy he once was. Katsuki, unlike Izuku, had a peculiarity. The boy's perspiration could have exploded like nitroglycerin with each drop. Comparatively speaking, Izuku was a small, feeble boy with curly green hair who lacked any peculiarities. Out of the corner of his eye, he did occasionally spot people that no one else could, but when he tried to appear, like ghosts, they were never there. But his doctor said that wasn't a peculiarity. It was all in his head. Izuku, who was young, dreamed. He had a strong desire to become a hero someday, but he knew that would only ever be a dream without some kind of assistance. He could at least help his closest friend. Katsuki might turn into the hero they had always imagined themselves to be. All Izuku had to do was pursue him. For the past 2 years, Izuku had been Katsuki's shadow, his unwavering supporter, and occasionally his practice target. Despite everything, he continued to chase and smile like a lost puppy. Then Katsuki fell while guiding them across a log over a small creek. Izuku hurried to assist him while the others just stared in disbelief. Katsuki slapped Izuku's hand away in retaliation. The others left him after that, either because they didn't care about him or because they thought it would be funny. As dusk drew near, Izuku wandered around, stumbling among the underbrush and gradually becoming lost. As he frantically searched for a way home, Izuku ended up twisting and hurting his ankle in the dark, and he started to sob in agony and terror. A big wolf with a fanged skull face approached him as he sobbed in the moonlight. "You can see me. You are a truly unique morsel, aren't you, human?" the wolf said after the two had been staring at one another for a while. With a smile, Izuku said, "Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Can you help me? I just want to go home, and I don't think I'd make a good meal." He had heard of animals with peculiar habits before, but he had never anticipated encountering one. The wolf laughed. "Your reishi is powerful, so I'll make you a deal. I don't know where the exit is, but I do have a place where I rest. Survive long enough to heal, and I'll help you find your way home. Die, and what remains is mine to eat. Sound like a deal, human?" Izuku sighed. "If I say no, you'll just eat me now and not wait for me to die. You'll do what you want anyway, so I don't have much of a choice. My name is Izuku, by the way. If it matters, I'd like to see my mom at least one more time, so I'll take the deal." With a laugh, the wolf grabbed Izuku by the shirt and started to carry him away. Despite his circumstances, Izuku liked Lobo, and he grinned as he heard the wolf's voice in his head say, "Call me Lobo, little pup. Fear not, I am a wolf of my word. When you are feeling better, I will help you find your mother." The two talked for the next 3 days. Before, full bringers were so prevalent, Lobo said. Lobo chuckled and explained that people with special abilities were known as full bringers when Izuku appeared perplexed. Izuku couldn't help but wonder what those were after Lobo clarified that they used to only happen if someone survived a hollow attack. He was just grinning with teeth. "Beings like me, a hungry ghost. I am a hollow. Did you think my mask was just for looks? I am what remains of a soul that either couldn't move on or had something binding them to this realm. After that, a spirit that falls to sadness, loneliness, or simply remains too long is consumed by that darkness, and a hollow is born. I am not the standard hollow though. In fact, if I devoured the power sleeping within you, pup, I would no doubt become one of the highest ranks of hollows, but I am ZPVSGBUIFS after all." With a strange expression on his face, Izuku said, "I'm sorry, Lobo-sensei, but I couldn't understand what you just said." Laughing, the wolf hollow said, "I suppose you're not ready to know that secret yet, but someday, pup." Instead, Lobo shifted to let Izuku lean against him. Even though this was now commonplace, Izuku was still grateful for the small act of kindness. Being close to the hound was strangely reassuring, almost homely. While they were sleeping in Lobo's den, Lobo told Izuku a lot of other things, including about the Soul Reapers and other secrets that Izuku could never imagine, but Izuku knew that it wouldn't last. His leg was infected, with patches of green and black beginning to appear, and he was constantly losing strength, but talking to Lobo. Izuku accepted his destiny. Lobo was pleased with the idea that he would eventually gain the strength to evolve once more if he consumed Izuku. Even though Izuku is a Deku and useless at most things, at least he would assist one person before he was completely gone. He was able to assist his first true friend. Lobo appeared nervous on the third night. Izuku simply grinned and said, "Don't worry, Lobo-sensei. I know it's almost time, and I'm okay with it." His ears were twitching and his head was always alert. "What are you talking about, pup?" asked Lobo, tilting his head. Izuku sighed. "I'm going to die soon, but, at least I won't be a burden on my mom or you anymore. I hope a part of me lingers afterwards though. I don't want you to feel alone after I'm gone, my friend. I know how that feels." Sadly, Lobo turned away. "I hope so too. I never wanted to be near anyone else before, except to eat them, but I wouldn't mind if it was you, pup." At that moment, a huge roaring beast tore off the roof of their tiny den. It shared Lobo's bone mask and possessed 6 strong gorilla-like limbs, but it had a bird-like beak. Lobo leapt at the monster, while Izuku flinched away in helplessness and terror. Izuku saw the two engage in combat. Only a few frightened minutes passed before Lobo slammed into the earth. His body was beginning to disappear, and his mask was shattering. "Izuku, I don't know what will happen, but I need you to trust me." Lobo snickered, and Izuku nodded. "I need you to eat a piece of my mask. I don't know what will happen, but it should at least give you enough strength to get away, my pup." The other hollow roared in victory, so it didn't hear Lobo say, "Pup, I'm fading away. Neither of us can beat that thing, but it doesn't deserve the right to eat us." Despite his trembling fear, Izuku followed instructions. Izuku took a small piece and swallowed it right away. And he experienced a burning sensation throughout his body. In addition to the agony and pain, he sensed something else starting to take hold. His hand reached out and took another piece without thinking. Izuku was unable to stop. His brain cried out for him to stop, but he was unable to do so as his insides burned. Lobo grinned until his body went completely pale, and Izuku ate the last of his mask. Then Izuku's form froze, realizing at last that the other hollow had simply observed Izuku cannibalizing his lone friend with hunger, grinning. It saw a white material pour out of Izuku's mouth and start to take the shape of a new mask, similar to Lobo's but different in a few ways. Lobo's mask had been simple and unadorned, but Izuku's had crimson teeth and blue streaks that resembled lightning bolts, giving the impression that he was always covered in blood. When Izuku opened his eyes, he saw black pools with emerald centers. He then roared, sad and hungry, causing the other hollow to recoil in automatic fear. Before the newborn hollow began to eat the monster's mask that caused its only friend to vanish, Izuku's hands had turned into bony claws and the hollow's mask was being held in one of them. For the creature, this meal was a source of regret rather than happiness or catharsis. When he was finished, Izuku's mask broke and vanished into green sparkles, leaving him exhausted and completely healed as he fell forward, remembering only the faintest details of what had just transpired. The final sound he heard before going unconscious. The wolf laughed and said, "Good job, pup. Congratulations. I think I'll stick around for a while. Teach you how to be the new Lobo de Tormenta, the storm wolf." This was Lobo's voice in his head. When Izuku woke up the following morning, a wave of emotions swept over him. He appeared to be in excellent physical condition. Had his time with Lobo been a dream? It seemed like a dream. Despite his rough exterior, Lobo was a strong and honorable man. Never cruel or a beast like Katsuki had been over the past few years. A few tears began to well up in the corners of Izuku's eyes. Whether it was a dream or not, his lupine was. "Pup, can you not? I told you before, I'm not going anywhere. Also, did you seriously just describe me as rough around the edges? Seriously, I sacrifice myself to save your life and you toss me under the bus like that. Rude, pup, very rude. Lobo-sensei, you're not dead. Where are you?" Izuku exclaimed as he collapsed back in shock. Moaned, "At least that stopped the rain. Ya pup, still here, and as I told you before. I was dead long before we met. Hollows are ghosts, remember?" Izuku questioned the morning air. "Does that mean you're possessing me or something?" Sighing, "No, I'm a part of you now. Honestly, I don't know how. Eating me should have either killed you, or only given me temporary control before I completely faded, but it looks like we're stuck with each other now." Izuku chuckled, "I'm just happy I don't have to say goodbye. I'd miss you." Izuku noticed the wolf's eyes rolling. Okay, none of that. I wouldn't have gone far. With your luck, I wouldn't have needed to wait long for something to kill you. You're too naive to survive too long on your own. So, time for a little truth. I've known how to get out of the woods from day one. If you walk toward the sun for about 20 minutes, you'll be out. Sorry pup, but a hungry hollow needs to eat too. Izuku began to walk. I kind of knew that. Not the way out of course, but that you were lying about not knowing where it was. I forgive you though. Honestly, the last 3 days were the best I've had in years. Izuku felt Lobo fade back into the shadows of his thoughts after he complained, well, talking like this is exhausting, so I'm taking a nap, but take Kiero Kachoro, I love you pup. I'll be here if you need me. Despite not understanding what Lobo had said, something about it made Izuku feel warm. Lobo didn't say anything more until Izuku was ready to leave the woods. Before we go, there should be an empty space in that gray tree over there. Grab the stuff in there before we go. Lobo growled irritably, but Izuku could tell the wolf was more embarrassed than angry. Izuku followed instructions, but he laughed and said, a hollow hiding things in a tree hollow. That's kind of ironic. A tiny gadget that resembled a Pez dispenser with a cute dog head on top, a tiny coin bag, and a glove with a burning skull design were all found inside the tree. Izuku took it all in with a shrug and began to walk home. As they strolled, Lobo began teaching Izuku the fundamentals of using their abilities, beginning with the most crucial idea, managing their ryutsu, or spiritual pressure. Izuku was told by Lobo that although he had been handling it thus far, Izuku would need to gain control before he could teach him anything more. To Lobo's surprise, Izuku had a natural ability to manage his energy. Izuku could actually reduce his output to the point where, if you weren't actively searching for him, he would entirely disappear. Izuku didn't know why, but something about how effortlessly he completed it irritated the inner hollow. Wasn't it typical to have to learn how to blend in with the background in order to stay safe from bullies? Izuku began experimenting with tiny amounts of the energy he could now feel inside of him as he approached the apartment complex where he lived, but Lobo growled angrily and reprimanded him for doing so. The wolf claimed that because Izuku's body was still adjusting to him and gaining access to his ryutsu, it was extremely risky to do anything more than concentrate on detecting and managing its overall flow. Izuku sensed the emotional strain emanating from his apartment before he even knocked, and even without a frame of reference, he knew it was his mother, scared and devastated. Shortly after knocking on the door, it was flung open, and Izuku felt himself being tightly hugged and drenched in tears. After being hurried inside the apartment, Izuku's mother, Inko, appeared to pass out and spent the next 5 minutes holding her baby boy. When Inko finally appeared to be certain that she wasn't dreaming, she began asking a lot of questions, and Izuku sheepishly agreed to answer them all, during lunch. Despite Lobo's best efforts, the boy was on the verge of starvation after 3 days of eating only tiny handfuls of wild berries. Lobo assisted Izuku in coming up with a plausible lie, namely that he accidentally lost his way after becoming separated from Katsuki. Izuku was certain that his mother would have many questions later, but fortunately Inko was too thrilled about her son's return to ask many. Lobo simply sneered, nobody that absolutely stunning could be dangerous. I'm sure you're just being meek, again. Izuku said that his mother could be much scarier than the forest hollow was if she so desired. Lobo remained silent for a while, but Izuku could sense the wolf frantically trying to come up with a lie. Did you just hit on my mom? Izuku froze. Izuku exclaimed, great, I finally make a friend, and he turns out to be a pervert. Lobo roared in Izuku's mind as he retreated into the shadows. I am not a pervert. It's not my fault your mom is hot. I'm going to sleep. You can deal with the rest on your own, Lobo said. Lobo steadfastly refused to come out again, and Inko and Izuku spent the remainder of the evening watching a movie together while curled up on the couch. In the end, they dozed off there, reassured by one another. Izuku's body completed adjusting to his new power over the course of the following few days. Izuku's senses had significantly improved, and he was now much faster and stronger than before. Izuku's determination to begin exercising and joining a gym was another shift. Izuku was so motivated that Inko was initially hesitant to let it happen. The last straw for Inko was when he heard Izuku confess that he wished to become strong enough to never cause her to cry over him again. They were now outside the Battle Fist, a somewhat dilapidated dojo. The place was clean and obviously well loved, despite its slight age. As they approached the counter, they thought they would see an adult or perhaps an older adolescent behind the desk, but instead they saw a young girl with orange hair and teal eyes who was no older than Izuku. "Good morning. Are you here to train?" the young girl asked with a broad smile upon seeing them. "My name is Inko Midoriya. I had a meeting with Kendo Shihan to discuss my son Izuku getting a few self-defense classes and getting to train here, but I have to admit you sounded older on the phone." Inko laughed at the girl because she couldn't help but find her enthusiasm endearing. The youngster laughed. "That must have been my grandpa. He had to step away to take care of something, so I'm watching the dojo for a few minutes." "Oh the young lady got up and apologized. "I'm sorry, my name's Itsuka Kendo. I can show you around a bit while you wait, if you want." Izuku's excited expression told Inko everything she needed to know, even though she wasn't sure. "That would be great." Inko grinned at the girl and said, "Thank you, Kendo-chan." To the astonishment of both Midoriya and Izuku, Itsuka took Izuku by the hand and began guiding him while describing everything and its functions. The boy blushed at the contact, but he quickly became utterly amazed by the new world he was being shown. Inko watched and followed through it all, grinning a little. Itsuka guided Izuku to a punching bag and demonstrated proper punching technique after a short while. Izuku nodded in agreement, and at her request, he squared up on the bag to try it. Itsuka, of course, stood behind the bag to keep it stable. Izuku made a few insincere jabs, but Itsuka encouraged him to take it seriously, so he did. Itsuka was knocked back a few inches and landed on her butt after Izuku delivered a powerful blow to the bag. "That was amazing, Mido-kun. You have to join us. With a strength quirk like that you could be a great hero. Please, if you join I promise I'll help you train anytime you want." Itsuka exclaimed, positively beaming and vibrating with excitement. Itsuka had not noticed that she had grabbed Izuku's hands, but Izuku did, and his brain was currently overheating as he gave his best strawberry impression. "I quite agree, Itsuka. The boy has a lot of potential," said an elderly man wearing a black gi as he stepped around a corner. He had mostly graying hair, but his tied-back hair still had a few bright orange streaks, and his eyes were wise and warm despite his harsh, disciplined features. Letting go of Izuku's hands, Itsuka practically leapt on the man, assisting him in beginning to recover from his brain lock. Itsuka was overjoyed. "Oji-san, I found one, and he's super strong. He might even be stronger than me when I use big fists. Please, Oji-san, I'll train extra hard, and help clean the dojo an extra day a week, just please let him join." When he saw how depressed and ashamed the boy appeared, the older man paused and gave him a worried look. "What is troubling you, young man?" he asked. "Calm yourself, Itsu. I had every intention of volunteering our services, there's no need to overwork yourself." "Now Midoriya-kun, what do you?" Izuku said, "That wasn't my quirk. I'm actually quirkless, Kendo-sensei. I'm sorry, maybe I should," with his face down to conceal his embarrassment and shame. But that's when he heard the older gentleman roar with a fit of laughter, "You don't say. Well, in that case, you really must join us. A quirkless boy will find many difficulties on the road of life, but to hold this much strength already, it would be my pleasure to help you refine that strength. The look in your eye when you threw that punch was all I needed to know in order to see it. How about this? The dojo could use an extra hand, and my little Itsuka here is really the only kid her age around here. If you're willing to volunteer some time to help out, I'll waive my usual admission fee. What do you say, young man? Are you sure? It really doesn't matter if I'm quirkless?" Izuku asked, looking shocked. The elderly man bent down to look Izuku in the eye. "Izuku, never let anyone or anything hold you back. The conditions of one's birth are irrelevant. Anyone can become strong if they have the fortitude to endure and the will to succeed." The man laughed. "I'm going to tell you a secret. I used to be quite the hero under my friend Mushi. I had a powerful quirk, and a lot of skill under this black belt of mine, but there was always someone I couldn't beat. She was the greatest rival I ever found, greater than any villain or adversary, and she was quirkless. All the time others would invest into training their quirk, she put into training herself. She was truly amazing." "What happened to her, Kendo-sensei?" Izuku asked, seemingly enthralled. The girl in question had spent the majority of the story looking away with a heavy blush, but she turned and smiled when the old master said, "She passed a few years ago, but not before giving me the greatest honor of my life, my family. That woman was my wife, and Itsuka's grandmother. After she passed away, my late son named his only daughter after her, and I was touched, but the thing I'm most proud of is the fire in her eyes. The same fire that always burned in my Itsuka's eyes. I don't tell you this only to embarrass my precious Itsu, but also because it proves, you don't need a quirk to be a hero. She was mine, so let me help you shine just as brightly and show the world that you are more than just a quirkless boy, you are a mighty hero. Izuku bowed deeply and straightened his back, saying, yes, Kendo-sensei. I won't disappoint you, I promise. Inko nodded her support behind him, and Itsuka appeared ready to leap forward and give the boy an excited embrace, but the master stopped her with a stern look. Knowing my Aistu, you've already seen what we have available, so, what would you like to learn? The master said, standing with his arm extended and turning to face Izuku. Izuku searched the area until he found what he was looking for, then he hurried to it. Izuku said, I want to learn to fight bare-handed, but if it's not too much trouble, can you teach me how to use this as well? He smiled slightly as he held out the wooden training sword. The elderly gentleman chuckled, that's what I wanted to see. Eyes full of fire, and a thirst to not only learn, but push even further. Young Midoriya, I'm going to teach you that, and so much more. Let's get started, then. Breakdown. Welcome to the first part of my special October event. We have a story about ghosts and monsters in honor of the eerie month, complete with my typical dose of romance. Shine on, lovely readers, and I hope you all have fun. Shine brightly. Mido, my boy, you've really come a long way since we met. No longer are you a lump of coal, but a dazzling diamond. You make this old man proud, said Izuku Midoriya, now 14, as he was about to take a shower and put on his uniform for class at Aldera Middle after finishing his morning kendo training. Izuku laughed, whatever you say Oji Dono. Itsuka-san still makes me look like a novice all the time. She'll make a great master someday when you retire. You know, in another 60 years. Don't get cheeky with me. These old bones can still fight with the best of them. I have another 80 years, minimum, the old master said with a sneer and a nose flick. Itsuka turned to face Izuku and said, and you, don't get overconfident. Just because I let you teach a few beginner classes doesn't mean you're a master. Now go get cleaned up, or I'll throw you into that locker room. The two laughed until they heard an irritated snort. Gramps, you need to rest. Your doctor is already going to be mad I let you teach a third class this week. Go rest, now. Yes, Master Suka. Itsuka blushed, but Izuku had already run off laughing as the two men exchanged a look and bowed deeply. Ah, young love, isn't it grand, said the elderly man, grinning at the two. Itsuka rolled her eyes and said, Zuku and I aren't like that. He's like a little brother, and it's not my fault he's the only one who can keep up with me. Itsuka stomped away, complaining, stupid old man. Stupid emerald head, as she saw the old man's smile grow. Izuku left the locker room in his uniform 15 minutes later. Izuku had grown a good deal of muscle over the years, and his green curly hair had grown out a little so that he now wore it in a small ponytail like his master, just like Itsuka. Izuku carried his school bag in one hand and his personal black training sword on his back, which he received as a gift from his mother and master when he took over his master's swordsmanship classes the previous year. Izuku took pride in his role and never left the house without his weapon, despite the fact that few people took the time to learn it. Izuku encountered Reiko Yanagi, a pale, bookish girl who had joined his class roughly half a year prior, on his way to school. She had a generally pale complexion, pale gray hair, and was quiet, but they had bonded over their shared love of books. Izuku found the girl's occasional sassiness endearing. Izuku had just moved a few paces away from Yanagi before they arrived at the building when a blonde figure screamed, "Die!" and rushed toward Izuku. The blonde launched an explosive attack, but Izuku caught it with practiced ease and slammed him back into the ground. Just as his fist began to drip with explosive sweat, the blonde used two tiny explosions to stand back up. Izuku felt a fist slam into his stomach just before the explosive punch could reach his face. Its brother then delivered a powerful uppercut to his chin, ultimately rendering the blonde unconscious. Izuku snorted as a paper with large red letters began to float over the blonde's head a few seconds later. The pale girl simply grinned and began searching through her bag for a particular notebook, asking, "Really, Rei? When did you make up a KO page for him?" Izuku sighed, "What's the tally anyway?" Reiko eventually located what she was searching for, and then she flipped it around to display a score tally in order to add a new mark. Izuku laughed, 68-0. Maybe I should throw one just so he doesn't get too demoralized. The blonde roared, the fuck you will shitty Deku. I'll beat you on my own, and finally prove I'm superior, as he began to turn around. Don't you ever get tired, Katsuki? Izuku asked, reaching down to assist the blonde in standing. Katsuki sighed, stupid fucking Deku. Oh course not, I'm the best, and nobody can forget it. I'm going to be the next #1 hero, and nobody can stop me. We still meeting at your place this weekend for Fireball Katsuden, and our game night? Izuku asked, grinning and giving his friends a pat in return. Katsuki laughed, are you fucking kidding me? The old hag has been badgering me since last time about it. Oh course we are, I swear, I think she likes you more than me. Izuku nodded. Don't say that, Kat. Aunt Mitsuki loves you more than anything, and you know it. Tell you what, I'll bring that sriracha scorpion sauce you like when I come by. Katsuki gave a faint grin. Fine, I still don't know where you get that shit, but it's fire. Going to invite the spooker man hands. When Izuku turned to face Reiko, she shook her head and said, nah, it's a guy's night, and last time Kendo met your mom, I think your mom tried to set you up with her. Shuddering, Katsuki said, yeah, fuck that. The last thing I want is that ginger fuck. As they strolled, Izuku simply chuckled and said, you're just scared she'll kick your ass again. With a flush, Katsuki exclaimed, she did fucking not. Izuku exhaled, she, and I quote, planted your head in the dirt so hard she made an angry dumb-ass tree. I tried to warn you, but you never listened to me. And why the fuck would I? Stay in your lane, Deku, and next time. Katsuki said as he began to stomp away. I'm going to fucking blow you away. Just you wait, I'll fucking do it, Katsuki grinned challengingly. You have the weirdest friends, Izuku. I can't tell if he wants to kill you or date you sometimes. Reiko sighed after he had left. Izuku whipped around. Whoa, Rei, that's not funny. Neither of us is gay first of all, and don't forget, you're my friend too. Rei simply shrugged and said, true. You're the weirdest of all Unagi, but I shouldn't be surprised. Izuku said as she left to go to her locker. You are a soul reaper after all. Izuku arrived at class to find a new short girl at the teacher's desk chatting with Reiko and their teacher. She had long blonde hair, hoof-like feet, and pale tan horns. After everyone had settled in, the instructor stood up and said, calm down everybody. Looks like we have another exchange student. I'll let her introduce herself, so be polite. Good morning, I'm Tsunotori Pony. Please just call me Pony. I'm an exchange student from America. It's nice to meet you all, the blonde girl said, grinning as she turned to face the class. Izuku noticed her equine muzzle and sparkling Prussian blue eyes. Pony moved quickly and found her seat without any further disturbance when the teacher pointed to an open seat and said, well, you can take a seat between Unagi and Midoriya. If you have any trouble, they should be able to help. However, Izuku noticed the new girl and Reiko exchange small nods as she sat down, which caused Izuku to sigh inwardly. Pony and Reiko remained together for the remainder of the school day, though Pony would occasionally give Izuku a long look. Izuku chose to disregard it. Why would this Pony girl sense him when Reiko had never done so? Reiko was getting ready to show her friend around town after class when 3 older boys approached from behind and blocked their escape routes. So, I heard we had a cute exchange student around, but you are stunning. Why not ditch the bookworm, and come with us hot stuff? We'll show you a good time. The middle boy, a dark-haired boy with a slight strength quirk, grinned at them as he began to speak. Really, Dichi, Reiko sighed, you'll regret this. Another kid grumbled, shut it Unagi. Your little protector isn't here, and it's none of your business if we throw a little party. Be nice Sarabai, if little Unagi wants to join, I'll be her dance partner, a slimy teenager joked. Don't fight it, cutie. I always get what I want, Dichi said, reaching out to Pony. A wooden object was resting on Dichi's shoulder when Reiko suddenly smiled. Afternoon, Mr. Yamichi. Is there a problem? Izuku asked in a casual tone as the air suddenly felt heavy. Dichi turned around and said, fuck off Midoriya. I don't care what anyone says, you're still a quirkless weakling. I don't know why they let filth like you even attend this school. With a smile on his face, Izuku placed his training sword on the older boy's shoulder and said, I think there has been a misunderstanding here. Let me clear it up for you. I'm not filth, I'm the garbage man. You see this armband? Izuku tapped a yellow band around his arm and said, it means I have permission to drive away delinquents, check hall passes, and my favorite of all, take out the trash. Izuku then put his hand on Dichi's shoulder, giving him a gentle squeeze that made the older boy wince. Let's get out of here, guys. I'm suddenly not feeling very festive, Dichi said, shuddering as she looked into the younger boy's emerald eyes. Reiko sighed after the boys had left, saying, thanks Izuku. Those guys are really annoying. Izuku simply grinned and put his sword back in its sheath, saying, anytime Rei. Okay, the heck is this? What are you, Midoriya? Scowled Pony, glancing between the two of them. What are you talking about, Pony? I'm just your average ordinary. Izuku stepped back, but then a marble-sized orb smashed into his mouth, separating him from his body. The new Izuku, the one not wearing his uniform, had the same appearance as before, with the exception that he was wearing a strange shihakusho. Although the colors were entirely different, the design was similar. The typically black kosode overshirt and hakama pants were an emerald green, and Izuku wore black boots in place of waraji, rope sandals, while the typically white shitagi undershirt, hakama himo, belt, and tabi socks were red. His clothes now had a wild, ragged appearance due to the rough removal of all the sleeves, and his hair hung wild and untamed. Another strange thing was that, even though Izuku was right-handed, he wore his zanpakuto on his right side as though it weren't his primary weapon. With a sigh, Izuku said, well, shit. Izuku Midoriya, explain. Now, Yanagi's expression changed from one of surprise to one of perplexity before settling on betrayed rage. Before you freak out, I am a soul reaper, kind of. I guess if you want to split hairs, I'm half reaper. My dad met my mom on a mission, and never came back. Probably doesn't even realize I exist, but I do, Izuku said, leaning back and sitting in the air on a hardened bit of reishi, much to the girl's surprise, as if he were standing on air. Clearly this isn't the first time you've been ejected from your body. How? Asked Pony, who appeared suspicious. Izuku sighed. Accident when I was a kid. I ran into a hollow, it wanted to eat me, so I killed it. They appear every few years to try to attack me, but none have succeeded yet. Anything else? Why didn't you tell me, and why couldn't I sense you? Reiko asked, turning away. I haven't told anyone, but from what I was able to cobble together from the few scraps I could find, if I had, you would have tried to take me to Soul Society and made my mom forget I ever existed. I refuse. I won't abandon my mom, not even for you, Rei. As for why you couldn't sense me, Izuku sighed, and all of his Ryutsu abruptly disappeared from their perception. They wouldn't know he even existed if they weren't staring at him. I have incredibly fine control over my Ryutsu. It's one of the reasons I only have to deal with defending myself from attacks every few months. Izuku chuckled, the other being the hunter. Of course you'd be aware of it. What can you tell us about it? Complained Pony and Reiko. With a laugh, Izuku asked, why do you care? By order of the Gote 13, I demand you answer us. Snarled Pony. What was your father's name? He should know he has a son, and, wouldn't you like to meet him? Reiko asked, tilting her head and giving Izuku a strange look. Not even a little bit. Izuku sighed, glaring at Reiko and ignoring Pony. If my father cared for us, he wouldn't have left, or at least come back to check on my mom at least once over the years. His name was Hisashi Seikarana. The two girls stepped back and bowed their heads while Pony stumbled, we are sorry, sir. We had no idea. Please, could you give us the information we require? Izuku laughed. Okay, none of that. I don't know why it matters who my dad was, and I don't care. Either tell me why you're hunting the hunter, or I'm leaving. I have work to do, and you're going to make me late. Reiko exhaled. I was sent to determine the reason Musudafu is so hollow-free. I eventually found evidence of the hunter, but I have no idea what it is. Only that it's incredibly fast and strong. Pony complained, and when she couldn't get the job done, I was sent to give her support. Reiko is brainy, but I'm the muscle of our friend group. Izuku laughed and said, wow, I didn't imagine you having a friend group. Now I don't feel special anymore. He then reached over and took his phone out of his pocket and said, well, you're out of time, ladies. I have to get to work, bye. Izuku gave himself an upside-down head slap and made the Gikken pill shoot out of his mouth before he returned to his body. Izuku scowled before he vanished, saying, by the way, never put random Gikken in my body again. Next time, you won't get it back. Then, his face abruptly changed back to a smile, and he said, ta-ta now. The boy just vanished, but not before making a brief crackling sound of static that confused them because shunpos were normally silent. However, Izuku also proved to be much faster than either of them, so they dismissed it. Pony and Reiko simply complained as they gathered their belongings and went to their now shared apartment to file a report after Izuku vanished without a trace. Reiko's contact in the 9th Squad removed their report despite his understandable skepticism that the two had simply happened upon a possible heir to one of the most powerful of the lower noble houses. To their astonishment, the same contact, who was now sweating and extremely nervous, called them back in just 3 hours. He had verified Hisashi's identity and his KIA report. The former heir was killed by a hollow after a routine scouting mission went horribly wrong. New orders were given to the pair right away. They were to try to persuade the missing noble to come back with them and keep him safe while they investigated. This additional responsibility caused Reiko to feel torn. Reiko had met Inko a few times, but she had no intention of letting her friend suffer harm. She was a kind woman who focused all of her attention on her son. Reiko wasn't sure she could do that, especially to someone like Inko, if he abruptly vanished. The woman was incredibly loving and kind. Reiko felt unclean even thinking about ripping away the most valuable person in her life. Conversely, Pony didn't hesitate to simply render the man unconscious and hand him over to her captain. Izuku was cute because he was quick and fierce, but Pony was proud to be a part of Squad 11, where the strong make the decisions. Despite being in the 24th seat, Pony possessed strength. One arguably attractive brunette wouldn't stop her from rising to the top because she had put in a lot of effort and battled harder to earn her seat. One day, Pony would rise to the rank of captain and become Kenpachi. She would keep fighting for her dream. Both Reapers went to start their investigation after dark. Pony underwent significant changes in her spirit form, but Reiko did not. In her spirit form, Reiko acquired a black choker similar to her lieutenant's, while Pony lost her horns and horse features. Because they were from different squads, there were only slight variations in their standard Shihakusho. They decided to search independently, but stay in sight of one another as they looked for the hunter or the young lord, because Izuku had demonstrated that detecting his Ryutsu would be nearly pointless. Consequently, they pursued 3 distinct hollow signatures, but by the time they reached each one, the hollows had vanished. When the two took a break at midnight to talk and figure out what might be wrong, they heard that static sound once more. Pony discovered Izuku napping briefly behind a dividing wall. Reiko was shocked to see the blonde strike the green-haired boy in the head after Pony snarled. Strangely, the boy just yawned and said, "Yeah, no, I only get a few hours to sleep each day, so you rudely waking me up seems really petty." Pony continued to growl, "That's it. Square up, you entitled little shit. We're going to fight, and when I win you're going to tell us everything you know about that hunter thing." Izuku smirked and said, "Fine, but when I win," while yawning and scratching his head like a dog with his right hand. "You owe me a date." Pony blushed and sighed, "You know what, sure. You actually beat me in a fight, and I'll humor you, but that's not going to happen." Reiko moved to sit and watch the show as Pony began to stomp away from the green team. Reiko had witnessed Izuku instruct a few classes, but she had never realized the true potential of her friend. That was back when she thought he was merely a human being. In order for the book to record what she was about to see without either combatant knowing, Reiko quietly uttered her Zanpakuto's release command and synchronized with it. Izuku caught a glimpse of Reiko out of the corner of his eye and sensed the slight change in pressure brought on by her release. He sighed and laughed, "I warned you, pup. That Reaper is more dangerous than any fighter. Her power could be literally anything. We have to be extra careful. Also, is my pup finally feeling frisky? Do I need to explain the birds and bees again?" Izuku muttered to himself, "Shut it, Lobo. Yes, she's cute, but that isn't the point. Just watch, I have a plan." Izuku stood looking drowsy, while Pony assumed a combat stance. Both girls ignored the sudden warmth and humidity of the air surrounding them. "Take your stance, we don't have all night," growled Pony. Izuku simply waved her away, saying, "I'm ready when you are, but I'd suggest you draw your sword. You won't hit me otherwise." Pony charged and attempted to palm strike Izuku in the stomach to end the fight swiftly, but Izuku's form appeared to shimmer and waver as Pony's palm passed through Izuku's core. Izuku was leaning against an air conditioner when Pony turned to look around. "So what kind of food do you like? If I'm going to take a cute girl out, I want to make it something she'd enjoy, ya know. My mom tried to raise a gentleman, but only about half of it stuck." Izuku seemed to be in a different world as Pony stomped her feet and charged at him once more. Pony turned to see Izuku standing behind Reiko and peering over her shoulder at the book, but her next blow bent and gouged a hole into the unit Izuku had seemed to be standing next to. Damn it, fight me already, you insufferable green rabbit. This speedy dodging crap is getting old fast. Izuku exhaled. Rei, you've known this angry bull for a while, help me out here. I just want to show her a good time. Is that so wrong? At last, Pony screamed and pulled out her blade, saying, show them our power, Suno no Omo, Lord of Horns. Her katana flashed and changed into two punch daggers with blades that distinctly resembled horns, and she had two horns on her head that matched those on her gigai. As Pony bounded toward Izuku, horned head first, Reiko leapt to her feet and ran for cover. Izuku grinned, and his form remained unwavering this time. Rather, Izuku palmed her forehead and deftly slipped his hand between the approaching horns. Reiko was shocked to see that Izuku was simply stiff-arming her friend as if it were simple, as if she were a child. Izuku was not only keeping her at bay, but he was smiling as he did it. Reiko had watched Pony slam through brick, stone, and hollow torsos with hardly a flinch. Reiko began to laugh. Pony's always had a thing for apples, and the last time we let her pick where to go to eat, she showed us a barbecue place she said she visits regularly, so maybe ribs or teriyaki would be a nice treat. Really? That's awesome. I know just the place then. What about hobbies? What's dinner without a bit of fun? Izuku asked, laughing at Pony's betrayed expression. The pony growled, stop talking and just fight. This isn't funny. If you're not going to take this seriously then you can forget it. Keep your secrets. I'll hunt that thing on my own. Izuku felt strangely guilty after noticing the annoyance and rage in the blonde's blue eyes. With a sigh, Izuku threw her by her horns into the air. Izuku unexpectedly appeared in front of Pony and swept her legs before slamming a flaming fist next to her head, leaving a scorched crater. Pony was able to right herself midair and land on her feet, but she was shocked when Izuku adopted an actual fighting stance. Pony, I'm sorry. I'll tell you what others have told me, and don't worry. I won't hold you to the bet. I win. For a while, Pony just lay there. She didn't win. Pony couldn't help staring at the crater beside her. Izuku could have killed her if that was his intention. She was weaker than he. Back at her squad barracks, she had witnessed fights between seated officers almost every day, but the power he just displayed was definitely upper 10 material. I'm sorry for, well, everything I said. I was acting like a child, said Pony, sitting up and bowing her head. Izuku fussed with her locks. Don't sweat it, Pony. I was kind of being a tool. I don't really let many people in, and I'm used to being on my own most of the time. It's not an excuse, and it doesn't give me the right to play around with your feelings. I'm sorry too. Reiko emerged from her hiding place and said, that's cool and all, but how did you do any of that? I checked my tome, but I didn't see you release your Zanpakuto. Izuku laughed. That's because I didn't. Even unreleased, my Zanpakuto has a bit of a temper. Just before the fight started, it vented a bunch into the area. Every time Pony tried to hit me I just moved out of the way, but because of the heat I left a heat shimmer behind. Everything else was just me, and the results of the training program I came up with. Pony sighed and put her blade back in its unreleased state, hiding her face. I'm just weak then. I train all the time. I try my best, but I guess it didn't matter. I'll never become a seated officer, much less a captain if I can't even beat a boy who's never even been to the academy. Suddenly Pony felt someone lift her up and pull her into a cozy embrace. I might not have gone to any academy, but everything I do is a form of training. Sure, you couldn't beat me today, but tomorrow is another chance. Don't get discouraged. Now, I promised you both a few answers, so here's what I've heard. The hunter is a hollow, but it doesn't hunt normal souls, only hollows. The few souls have met and helped move on, said it had a wolf mask, and it seemed to want to protect both the souls and the living. I don't know since I've never been fast enough to see it myself, but it's definitely no ordinary hollow. I'd suggest you just leave it be. It's not hurting anyone, and since it only hunts other hollows it's actually doing a solid job at protecting us. Reiko nodded her head. That can't be right. Hollows are mindless beasts. Even the smarter ones only use their lingering intelligence to be more malicious as they consume souls. It would have to be an Ijukas to do the things you're describing, and if there was one of those around we would be able to sense it. Not to mention they're rare, and have to eat nearly constantly to stay stable. There's no way it could be one of those. Pony gave a smile. That's right, I remember you and Abara telling us about those. With a head tilt, Izuku said, let me guess, another friend of yours. Pony laughed as well. Yeah, Abara, Reiko, and I all went to the academy together. Between the three of us, Ko is the brain, I'm the brawn, and Abara is the leader. Ko comes up with a plan, Abara refines it into a workable strategy and provides ranged support while I get up close and beat him up. Abara is the closest to becoming an actual seated officer too. She's Squad 6's 21st seat, and Reiko is Squad 9's 22nd seat. I'm nothing compared to them. Reiko laughed. She's being dumb, Izuku. Pony is the 24th seat in Squad 11, the fiercest fighters in all of the Seraite. In any other squad, her fighting skills would easily net her a seat among the lower seated, but not this wild stallion. She refused to consider any other squad. Pony was embarrassed. Ko, stop that. First you tell him what kinds of food I like, and now this. I thought you were my friend. Reiko cocked her head. I am. That's why I told him. Izuku's a nice guy, and he made a good point. You should have fun on your date. Pony was blushing as Izuku was stammering. That was a joke, Rei. I never intended to make her go through with it. I was just teasing to throw her off. Obviously, she'd never want to go out with me. I'm a nobody half-reaper. She's clearly too good for me. Izuku blushed as Pony glared at her, saying, no, I made the beat, and I'm going to stand by it. I owe you a date, so we're going on a date. Just tell me when, since I'm still new to the area. If you insist. I know, you're really into fighting, right? Izuku asked, blushing even more and averting his gaze. Pony nodded enthusiastically and her eyes sparkled. Izuku laughed. I have a job to do on Friday, but it came with a free ticket to watch the underground pit fights. If you want you can come watch the fights, and we can go out for dinner after. Izuku observed that Pony's nose was twitching, mumbled, it can just be a friend date if you want. No need to feel like dressing up or any pressure. Just two people hanging out, and having a little fun. Pony replied, that sounds nice, but, Midoriya, you do realize that you're not really a nobody, right? No need to try to inflate my ego, Tsunotori-san. I know what I am, and I'm okay with that. Just a third-rate reaper, abandoned in the living realm. I'm not really human, and I'm barely a reaper, but I'm me. In the end, that's all I need to be, Izuku said, laughing and lightly squeezing the smaller girl in his lap. Izuku, none of that is true. Your family, the Seikaranina, they're nobles. Lower nobles, but still nobles. Your father was the only known heir to the main family. We confirmed it with Soul Society. Izuku, your father didn't abandon you. He died on a routine scouting mission 13 years ago. We saw the report. Pony turned away from Izuku after feeling her heart begin to race. Izuku took a few steps away after carefully moving Pony off his lap. 13 years. Are you sure it was 13? He asked in a strained tone, and the girls heard him sniffle as he glanced up at the stars. Pony turned to face Reiko, who was still reading her book. 13 years, 2 months, and 14 days. It was reportedly Hollow the 12th to the 15th of February 15 that killed him, she said, nodding after retrieving the report as they had previously seen it. With a sigh of relief, Pony replied, unless a Hollow makes a particular name for itself they get a string of numbers based on where, when, and how it's identified. I don't get it either. Who cares what the beasts are named, we take them out one way or another. Every Hollow used to be a person. Giving them a number just seems kind of rude, and dehumanizing, I guess. Reiko cocked her head, and Pony shrugged, which made Izuku snort. I guess it doesn't matter right now. This proves I was abandoned though. Hisashi disappeared 8 months before I was born, and didn't die until after my first birthday. He had nearly 2 years to check on us or tell anyone about my mom, but he didn't. Izuku attempted to smile, but it looked painfully fake. Reiko and Pony looked at each other and said, that's probably not true. Izuku looked at her with disbelief, but Pony unperturbed. Strictly speaking, Reapers aren't supposed to interact or interfere in the lives of the living, much less start relationships. It's not a crime per se, but getting caught does carry some severe consequences. It's not usually an issue though, since half-reapers like you are a 1 in a million situation. Simply put, most children simply can't even survive long enough to truly exist, and since their spirits don't even get a chance to truly form they fall apart, returning directly to the cycle of rebirth without ever really living. Most never even know it happened. Izuku, your dad was a noble. The consequences for him would have been even worse, but he still took the chance. I can't imagine he would if he hadn't at least loved your mom. It's not much, but I hope it helps. Izuku grinned and turned to face the moon, saying, thanks Pony. Maybe you're right. He then checked his phone and sighed, saying, I need to head to bed, I'll see you ladies tomorrow, bye. Once more, he simply vanished, leaving only the brief sound of static in his wake. So, miss, boys are weak and dumb, has a date. Reiko grinned. Pony blushed as she said, you heard him. It's a friend date, just a couple friends hanging out, and this might work in our favor. If he falls for my obvious irresistibleness, it will make it easier to get him to come back with us. Reiko was just grinning. So you don't think he's cute? Then you won't mind if I try to get to know him a bit better too. I do already have an in with his mom. You wouldn't dare. Pony scowled at Reiko and moaned, fine, he's cute, and he's definitely not weak. I felt his muscles a bit when he held me, and, this is stupid. It's been what, a couple hours? I'm not crushing, I don't even know him. Reiko grinned. So, you wouldn't be interested in scoping out where he lived? Pony looked up. Nah, now wait a minute. We have orders to protect him. It would be good to check the area, make sure no hollows are lying in wait to ambush him. Lie to yourself all you want, NY-chan, but I see you. You want Zuzu, and I'm going to help you bag your prince. Reiko laughed and said, sure, Pony. Whatever you say. The two began to run. So, anything to report, Izuka? Izuku waved to his body upon arriving home. Izuka laughed. Mom came by to check on you a bit ago, Ni-san, but beyond that, not really. I felt a new spirit reaper, and got worried. Are you okay? With a scratch on the back of his head, Izuku said, yeah, I'm good. Her name is Pony, and we might be going on a date Friday. Are you stupid? What if she finds out about you and Lobo Dono? I don't want you to die. Before you found me, I was alone. Please don't make me go back to sleep. You're the only family I have left. All the other mod souls are gone. Please, Oni-chan, I'm scared, Izuka said, blinking for a moment before slapping him upside the head. It didn't matter that what appeared to be twin teenage boys holding each other so tenderly might have seemed strange to onlookers. As his friend sobbed quietly inside his body, Izuku embraced and consoled her. Izuku saw Izuka as a scared, lonely girl, even though she was a synthetic soul made for combat. Izuku was no longer bothered by her insistence on referring to him as her big brother, even though it was strange at first. Nothing would alter the fact that Izuka was now his beloved younger sister. She was always there for him, no matter how hungry he was, and he didn't trust anyone else to take care of his body. He loved her because she didn't fear him or despise him for who he was. Izuku gently made Izuka spit up her Gikken pill, which he then stored for the night in an old Stars and Stripes action figure he had as a child. Izuku moved to sit her on the pillow he had prepared especially for her to rest on, so that she could still have a body, even if it wasn't as mobile as his. As they got to know one another, Izuku allowed her to use any toy or stuffed animal she wanted because she was afraid of being idle for extended periods of time. She later acknowledged, you can be All Might. I'll be Stars. That way we can be different, but the same, like siblings. Izuka had picked the Stars figure because it appeared to be a female version of his favorite hero, All Might. After they were both comfortable, Izuku relaxed and fell asleep. Before long, he was making his way through his mindscape in the direction of the cave Lobo frequently stayed in when he wasn't actively participating in Izuku's daily activities. Yo Lobo, Entei, you in there? Izuku said at the edge of the cave. He heard a familiar howl, followed by a loud roar that sounded like a big cat and the crackling of an inferno. Izuku just waited with his back to a tree until two figures emerged from the cave. There was a very large white wolf with a hollow, lupin black mask that had gradually changed over time to show more red and green stripes. The other is a liger-esque cat with stripes and an emerald flame mane of comparable size. Entei sat there looking annoyed, while Lobo curled up comfortably at the cave's entrance and yawned. After a moment, Lobo laughed and said, so, that didn't go as expected. Matured Entei. You play a dangerous game, little prince. You did well using the embers of my power to defeat that upstart lord, but we could feel your hesitation. Either dominate the blonde like a real ruler or devour her. I don't care, but all this blushing and stuttering, it's unbecoming of one who believes himself worthy to be my wielder. He sighed. I find it cute, but the house cat has a point. This, Pony, seems like a girl that values strength. We have that in abundance, so maybe let her see it. Show her you're just as determined as she is, and you won't need to dominate her. She'll come to you. Lobo began to move around. I sense that is not why you have come though. Tell us, pup, what do you need? I have a plan to throw them off our scent for a while, but it's not going to be pleasant, and it's something both of you need to agree to. Izuku laughed, making his mask appear in one hand and his Reaper Zanpakuto appear in the other. Anybody up for some trickery? Izuku asked, looking at the two spirits, who appeared to share his smirk as they all settled in to figure out Izuku's scheme. By the end, all three of them were giggling and eager to begin. The fun could now start since they only needed a hollow to stumble into their territory. The following morning, Izuku got up and went about his daily business. Clean up, put on clothes, take Izuku's pill and conceal it in the small chibi midnight clip-on that he hollowed out before attaching it to his bag, and eat breakfast. Until he heard voices right before leaving his room to eat, everything was going as smoothly as it could. Izuku noticed Reiko and Pony sitting with his mother and having a pleasant conversation when he went to look into it. Izuku initially wanted to complain and ask why they were there, but after hearing his mother laugh and realizing how content she appeared to be, he decided to just lean against the wall. However, after a few minutes, Izuku grinned and began to warm up the space. All three began to perspire gradually until Inko turned to check the thermostat and froze. Good morning Izuku. How did you sleep? She said with a small laugh. I slept fine, Mom. I was just about to grab something to eat when I noticed we had visitors, and it would have been rude to interrupt, Izuku said, grinning and turning off his slow release of heat to allow the room to gradually cool. Inko was just chuckling. Don't be like that, Mini-Might. Reiko-chan was just introducing me to Tsunotori-chan, and she has an open invitation, so don't act so grumpy. I made you a few of those breakfast burritos you like. They're in the bag on the counter, and your water bottles are in the fridge. Thanks Mom. Red for pre, blue or post, and green all day, right? Izuku hugged his mother and kissed her on the head. Yosh, you're the best Mom. Izuku checked his watch and sighed, I'm running late. Gotta go Mom, bye. Inko nodded and giggled. Izuku began to run away at a speed that was only marginally faster than human, but before he could get to the bottom of the stairs, he saw two girls pursuing him. Izuku grinned and began to slowly pick up speed, which caused his tails to follow suit. He felt a change after a few blocks and caught a glimpse of Reiko riding on Pony's back out of the corner of his eye. Izuku sensed his tenants whispering and pushing as he saw the horned girl's competitive, joyous smirk. Entei had a strong desire to establish their superiority, while Lobo felt a sense of playful competition to match. As a result, Izuku felt his body lighten and let his fire run wild, barely controlling the lightning even as Entei's fiery aura became apparent. Pony marveled as Izuku's form began to falter once more due to a faint shimmer caused by the heat radiating from him. Suddenly, she felt a burst of extremely oppressive heat, and he vanished. His final step before vanishing was marked by a tiny patch of melted asphalt. For a brief moment, Pony paused in amazement at the strength she sensed and experienced a new tightness and warmth in her chest. After a brief moment, Reiko began to lead her to their destination while genuinely laughing at her friend's shocked response. Izuku had already changed into his teaching GI and started warming up for his Tuesday morning class when they got there. For a brief moment, Pony felt the warmth return to her chest when she saw the teenager wearing a captain's harry, perhaps because he looked so much like the Shihakusho in his black GI. The warmth persisted even after Pony had to shake her head and slap herself to clear her vision. Upon closer inspection, Pony saw that Izuku was only wearing a red sash to indicate rank rather than a colored belt. Shouldn't he be wearing his rank? Is that not a thing anymore? She asked, turning to face Reiko. A girl wearing a black belt with 5 red marks or dons approached before Reiko could respond. She proudly wore her belt, saying, "No, you're right. He should wear it, but since we each have different areas of discipline we merge all of our levels together to determine our level of mastery." Midoriya Dono, however, dislikes showing off his belt, claiming it's to avoid frightening his students, but I believe he simply dislikes the attention. With a hint of irritation in her voice, Pony snorted and said, "And you are?" The young lady chuckled, "You can call me Kendo-sensei. My grandfather owns and runs this gym. Until he retires, he's the only Kendo dono this place needs." Reiko shakes her head and bows slightly back, I'm guessing since you're here with Yanagi-san, you're just here to watch. Well, you picked a good day for it. He should show up soon for his monthly challenge, and it's always a fun show. Reiko's pupils widened. Is it that time already? Yosh. Pony, this is great. You were complaining he didn't draw his blade when you challenged him. This could be your chance to see why I said you got lucky. What do you mean you shall? Itsuka asked, casting a worried glance at the two. Get out here, you coward. Stop hiding behind your green dog and face me. I'm here to finally claim your banner, and you won't escape me this time. Shouted a green mantis-like teen as they heard a slamming sound. Itsuka laughed as he approached the teenager. Good morning, Kamakiri. Sadly, the master stepped away, but you know the deal by now, and you agreed to it the first time you came. If you want to fight my grandfather, you have to beat his best student first, and since you chose the way of the blade, that's Midoriya Dono, but you do realize this is your last challenge, right? If you lose this time, you know what will happen. Itsuka simply bowed while still grinning and escorted the teenager away as Kamakiri growled softly, of course, but I will win so it doesn't matter. Now take me to the green speed bump, I have a dojo to crush. Taking Pony's hand, Reiko began guiding her in a different direction, saying, come on. It's going to begin soon. Before long, the pair was on a slightly elevated section with a view of the tiny sparring ring. The entire student body of the dojo was seated just below them, watching the challenge, but none of them appeared concerned. Izuku took deep, focused breaths and sat in his place, his wooden blade in front of him. Another minute later, Kamakiri, wearing a blue GI, strode out, but as soon as he got to his starting position, he grinned and said, this is my last chance, so we are going to do this right. Kamakiri turned to face Itsuka and threw his wooden sword to her, even though a blade was forming in his other hand. No holding back. Izuku exhaled. You may use your blade if that is what you wish, but it will not help you. I will stick with mine. Regardless of your attitude, I don't wish to harm more than your pride. Both teenagers bowed and assumed their positions, but only Reiko and Pony sensed the pressure change, the slight change in temperature, as Kamakiri sneered, you're serious. You're going to fight me with kindling. This will be fast indeed. In an attempt to save time and effort, Kamakiri took the initiative, but he was taken aback when the green teenager not only parried his blade but also did so without causing any damage to his bakken or even opening his eyes. Kamakiri felt the weight of every blow as he had to parry the wooden blade with his steel, even though Izuku's attacks were slow enough to be blocked. What was more concerning was the lessons Izuku imparted with each blow. Although Kamakiri was accustomed to the strange behavior of the green teenager, it didn't make him any happier. Tighten your guard. Correct your stance. Focus. You're letting your blade slack. The mantis was irritated by the fact that he was being taught, even during a match where a single error could result in bloodshed, but what really bothered him was the greenette's apparent indifference while keeping his eyes closed. As though sensing his opponent's intention, Izuku did not follow Kamakiri's step back. Kamakiri produced a second blade with his other hand, but if he was expecting surprise, he was not. For the first time in any of their encounters, Izuku simply grinned and opened his eyes. Kamakiri appeared to regain his momentum with the aid of a second weapon to track. He took the initiative and pressed Izuku back with strike after strike, but he was never able to get an opening or break Izuku's block. After blocking for an additional minute, Kamakiri complained, how? That bakken should be a shaved toothpick after catching so many strikes, but it doesn't even look weathered or scratched. A blade is only as sturdy as its wielder's will, let me demonstrate. Izuku simply kept grinning, saying, just because my blade is not steel, it does not mean it is not as sturdy as my will. As long as my will is steel, the blade doesn't matter. I could counter you with uncooked pasta, and it would have the same effect. Izuku sighed and put the tip of his bakken to Kamakiri's throat. You have so much potential, but you've allowed your ego to blind you. We will correct this, my student. Izuku took the blade away. As you wish, Midoriya-sensei, Kamakiri said, bowing his head. Let me introduce our newest brother, Toguru Kamakiri. Together we will show the world that the Battle Fist Dojo, and our Morukote, Blazing Emperor, style is one without equal. We do not fight for ourselves, but to protect those who need us. Raise your battle fists, and feel the fire in your hearts. Izuku said, nodding toward his students, a group of 11 in a particular section, each holding a standard bakken with a green wrap in its grip. Yes, Midoriya Dono, was shouted by all of the students in the room, including Kamakiri, who stood and raised their fists. Izuku nodded, put his Bakken on his shoulder, and left the room full of passionate students behind him as he went to get ready for school. 6 months. 6 months you were here, and not once did you suspect he was a Reaper. How? Pony punched Reiko in the shoulder after the Reapers had watched the entire show in amazement. Reiko grumbled as she rubbed her shoulder. To be honest, I got distracted. The effects the wave had on the living world are extraordinary, and documenting how far these heroes have come, yeah, my bad. Itsuka smiled as she approached the whispering pair. So, did you enjoy the demonstration? We're always on the lookout for another challenger. Just so you know though, I'm not as kind as Zuku. He likes to teach while he fights, but real lessons can only be learned by finding a rival. Itsuka laughed. It's one of the reasons I'm so thankful he strolled in here all those years ago. Best rival a girl could ask for. With a startled expression, Pony asked the ginger girl, you spar with him regularly? You can actually counter that. Itsuka laughed out loud. Sword fight, Izuku. Oh Kami no. Are you insane? Izuku is the best duelist here by a wide margin. That's why he's the lead instructor for Kenjutsu. I handle hand-to-hand fighting. Our judo, karate, and Muay Thai infused style we call Battle Fist is my specialty. It was created by my grandparents, and I make it my business to truly master it. Izuku's Moru Kote is his own style he created over the years based on a bunch of styles, or so he brags, but Oji Dono lets him teach it to those interested. So, what do you say? Want to join? Itsuka blushed and complained, but Izuku had already hooked the Reaper duo's arms and started to leave before Pony could respond. Izuku walked up and sighed, don't bother, Suka. This little ram is too much to handle. We'd better head off to school if we don't want to be late. I'll see you later, Suki-Nisan. The three of them just strolled for the next few minutes. Pony was just staring at Izuku as if she were trying to figure something out, and he didn't appear to be in any kind of hurry. What's got your horns smoking this time, Pony? Izuku finally sighed. Pony complained, you don't make any sense to me. You're all cool and flippant most of the time, but then you become this serious wise master in the dojo. You tease and mock, but when I said I'd stand by the bet you got flustered and then depressed. I just don't get it. Who are you, really? You have a point, little ram. Who is Izuku Midoriya? Maybe the teacher, who loves to see his students grow. Maybe the son, who just wants to make his mother proud. Maybe the friend, who loves to see people smile or squirm in good-natured ways. Izuku sighed, or is he the lonely child? The one his father didn't care enough to meet. The one with secrets that mean he can never be honest with anyone. The one who has nobody, because it'll see you both later. Izuku laughed. Pony remained stunned until Reiko hit her head with her bag and said, nice going, Pony. Pony was rubbing her head. Firstly, ow. Second, how was I supposed to know that would trigger him? Now I have even more questions. This sucks. Upon reaching Aldera, they discovered a bewildered blonde standing outside, appearing distressed. Something's wrong with Deku, and I want to know what. You follow him around all the time, spook. Tell me. Katsuki growled and stomped up to Reiko as soon as he saw them. It wasn't a question, and he obviously expected a response, but Reiko simply turned away. Pony made a move to get between them. I don't know who you think you are, but you need to back off. It's my fault Izuku is like this, so why don't you leave my friend alone? With a snort and a frown on his face, Katsuki said, in that case, I hope you can dodge fucking cow. Katsuki charged forward and almost struck Pony in the face with his explosive right fist. Pony grinned as she felt the force and pressure of Katsuki's attack, even though she was able to dodge and roll away at the last second. Bring it then you angry dog, but you better give me everything you have, or I'm going to crush you underhoof, Pony said with a hungry smile as she threw her bag to Reiko. They charged each other, and to Katsuki's surprise, Pony met his punch with one of her own. Pony laughed, is that all you've got? This is nothing compared to back home. I had 3 older brothers. You're going to have to try a lot harder if you want to try to push me around. The ensuing explosion pushed both of them back a little, and Katsuki had to try to withstand the barrage of punches that fell on him like rain, but he managed. Even though each blow hurt, Izuku's was far worse. Compared to the only person Katsuki saw as a rival, they were like bee stings, and this bitch injured him. Katsuki's muscles tensed even more as he allowed his anger to rise. He began to perspire even more, and Katsuki moved when he saw an opening in the assault. Pony skidded and rolled away as he made the accumulated sweat explode with a thunderous boom, flexing his hand and slamming his palm toward her sternum. Katsuki howled, "Call me a dog all you like, cow bitch, but I'm top dog and don't you forget it. I will win, I will conquer, and I won't stop until the world bows before me. But to do that I have to overcome shitty Deku, and you're in my way. Fuck off and ah." A horn sped toward Katsuki and struck him in the stomach, cutting him off. While attempting to catch her breath, Pony grinned and kept firing horn after horn at Katsuki. The boy exploded horn after horn into dust that flew at him, growling and thrusting his palms out toward each like he was swatting gnats. After a full minute, both of them were panting, and Katsuki's uniform was covered in numerous tiny tears that concealed minor cuts and bruises, while Pony's uniform's chest was severely burned and barely preserved her modesty, not that she noticed. A green blur suddenly materialized between them, caught both of their faces, and slammed them into the ground, knocking them unconscious as they charged at each other for one last blow. Reiko laughed as Izuku complained. As he carried Katsuki and Pony to the nurse, Izuku tossed them over his shoulders without saying anything. Reiko simply grinned and jotted down a few notes in her book, saying, "Interesting." 15 minutes later, Pony awoke to find herself in what seemed to be a treatment room on an unfamiliar cot. "What did you do to him, Izuku? He ignored me this morning and just walked away instead of fighting me. He always fights back, so, what did you do?" began Katsuki, who was sitting and frowning on his own cot, before she could ask him anything. Sighed, "I went with him to his dojo. I saw him training his students. It confused me. Any other time, Izuku is downright flippant or dismissive, but when he teaches he seems like a whole different person. Focused, attentive, stern but kind. I couldn't make sense of it, so I asked him about it, but he just seemed sad and ran off. I just want to understand him, and, why are you looking at me like that?" Katsuki was staring at Pony with her open mouth, rage temporarily forgotten. "He let you watch. He took you to the battle fist. After one fucking day, you have no idea, do you? Deku doesn't take anyone there. Sure, he puts up flyers and everyone knows where it is, but nobody goes there. The last guy who tried was stopped at the door, and thrown out by man hands. That isn't just any dojo. You have to be invited to even get through the door. It might seem run down, but it might be the top dojo around that isn't privately run by a hero. Izuku and the Kendos have put a lot of work into making that place into a solid business. I didn't even get an invite until a few years ago, and I've known the nerd since we were born. How are you this close to him? What, are you suddenly dating or something? What's so funny, dog?" Pony pouted in frustration as Katsuki burst out laughing. "We spared last night, made a dumb bet, and now," Pony sighed. "We have a friend date on Friday." Katsuki simply kept laughing, saying, "You're so full of shit. There's no way you two are going on any kind of date. What, do you think I'm not good enough? Fuck you," and, snarled Pony in return. Katsuki simply waved her off. "You've got this all wrong. Izuku doesn't date anyone. He's probably been asked out, confessed to, or swarmed by more than a few dozen girls, and a few guys, over the years, but not once has he ever given any of them the time of day. Listen, you're cute and all, if you're into feisty short girls, but there's no way. He doesn't date anyone, and it wouldn't matter if you were Stars and Stripes herself, that wouldn't matter to him. I hate to admit it, but he's basically my brother, and as the person who knows him best, I just can't see it." Pony grumbled, "Well, it's true. He said something about having a job this Friday. Invited me to go see a good fight, I don't know." Looking at Pony, Katsuki froze and said, "Oh shit. You're not joking or lying, are you? Well, fuck, congratulations, I guess." Pony laughed, "Whatever. I just wish, you said you've known him for years. Maybe you can help. Who is he? Like, I just want to, I don't know, see the real Izuku, and not the mask he puts on for everyone else." "Ugh," Katsuki laughed, "you've got it bad. Shut it. Are you going to help or not?" Pony growled and pouted once more. Grinning, Katsuki sighed and said, "I'd be a shitty friend if I didn't." For the remainder of the week, Izuku appeared to ignore or flee from the Reapers, so they concentrated solely on pursuing the hunter or Hollow 119147, but they were unsuccessful. Izuku had claimed to speak to some spirits on a regular basis, but Reiko couldn't recall seeing any during her months in the area. In fact, the area appeared to be devoid of all spirits, which was extremely unusual. Pony was irritated when she discovered a note from Izuku at the end of Friday's classes, which only provided a time and location for their meeting. Pony could acknowledge that she made a mistake, but this cloak and dagger thing was becoming annoying. Pony arrived on the roof Izuku had instructed her to wait on just before dusk. She only needed to wait a few minutes to hear the distinctive static that signaled Izuku's approach. Pony turned to give him a piece of her mind, but when she saw him, it got stuck in her throat. Izuku wore black dress pants and a red dress shirt. His hair was pulled back and combed into a neat business-like top knot, and he wore a black belt around his waist with a silver tiger buckle. His red sneakers were all that was left of his normal attire. Izuku was carrying a backpack, which Pony nearly missed. Izuku rolled his eyes and snorted in amusement at Pony's response. Like what you see, the boss for this job has a dress code, and it's good money. Izuku reached into his bag and took out some clothing. This building is abandoned. I use a few like it as drop points, so take these and get changed inside. I have to stand out because I'm playing bouncer, but it would be better if you didn't. Okay, I can do this. So what if he's hot? This is just a hangout, not a real date. Calm down, and focus. You're a proud member of Squad 11, not some backwoods farm girl. Pony centered herself and examined the clothing after nodding and running inside. She noticed black jeans and a dark green sweatshirt. The hoodie's symbol, a roaring skeletal tiger mask surrounded by flames, was the only strange element. It almost appeared to be a hollow mask. Pony ignored the idea and put on her clothes. Pony looked in the mirror after finishing, feeling a little uncomfortable in the big hoodie. She walked back out because Pony thought she looked cute. Izuku nodded and laughed at her. Wasn't sure if it would work, but you look really cute in my hoodie. Pony blushed when she noticed that Izuku gave her grimace, so here are the rules. My mark should keep people from giving you any trouble unless you invite it, so no smart remarks or fighting. The place we're going is rough, and the regulars won't think twice about killing a lost little girl. I know you're tough, but these guys play for keeps. I'm trusting you to not make me step in. After the main event, I'll find you, and we can go get something to eat. I'm serious, Pony, we need to be careful. Also, no real names. Until we get clear my name is Entei. You got that little ram? Something about Izuku's beseeching seriousness made Pony reconsider rolling her eyes or scoffing. Okay, Entei. This sounds dangerous though, are you sure you'll be alright? She said. Izuku chuckled and said, you're worried about little old me. Don't be. The only one in any danger is them. Pony, no matter what happens, I'll protect you. I promise. Pony simply nodded and blushed as they ran off. Pony watched Izuku take out and put on a tiger mask as they ran. A hollow mask of Izuku didn't frighten her, even though she knew it was a fake. When they arrived at an abandoned warehouse, Izuku took Pony's arm and pulled up her hood. Well, if it isn't the infamous Entei. Come for another chance at the title. One of the two figures in domino masks scoffed as they approached. Izuku sighed. Your boss hired me for extra security. Have a problem with it? Asked Chisaki. And the girl, said the other guard, frowning. Izuku laughed. A fan. She's my +1, so I better not see any of you getting handsy, unless you want to know what it feels like to have your organs cooked while you're still breathing. Pony kept her head down and said nothing. She shuddered at the utter contempt and hatred she heard in Izuku's voice. She had never seen a strict teacher or a cute teen like this before. Entei was a combatant, an experienced murderer, and it seemed wrong in some way. He wasn't the silly, playful guy she'd met earlier that week, he was too dark and deadly. Nevertheless, she clung to his arm when it finally dawned on her that Izuku's warning was not in vain. The fact that these people were bad only made the question more pertinent. How did Izuku become involved in all of this? Izuku gave Pony a card as soon as they entered and instructed her to enjoy herself but to only drink sealed drinks and not place any bets. Pony nodded, but Izuku kissed her hand and winked flirtatiously before departing. As Pony moved farther into the bustling area, she noticed a sizable cage with a fight ring inside. There were a lot of people there, dressed in everything from dirty work shirts to suits and ties. Pony became a little alarmed when a woman wearing a domino mask stopped her, but she simply asked if she wanted a drink before revealing a tiny bag that was larger inside and filled with different cans. With a nod, Pony gave the woman the card that Izuku had given her. After a brief moment of shock, the woman passed it through a reader on her belt and gave Pony a cold peach sweet tea. 10 more minutes later, a man in a black bird mask emerged and bowed to the audience, saying, "Welcome friends and fight fans. We have a trio of blood baths to titillate your hunger for carnage. As you all know by now, the first two are call-outs from the hell bracket, but it's that time again. Some poor fool thinks they're man enough to challenge our titan of testosterone and king of the cage, Rappa." The audience went wild and cheered. The Birdman went on, "The bets have been counted, so up first we have Sid the Slayer vs. Polly Pox. Let's get this slaughter underway." As two figures entered the cage, the Birdman bowed once more and turned to leave. One was a plump woman with sickly black skeletal fingers and a gaudy yellow dress, while the other was a thin, wiry man covered in armor like blades. The man hurried his opponent with two curved knives as the bell rang out. For the most part, the woman was able to dodge and dance away, but she still received several thin, bleeding gashes as payback. This went on for a while until the woman palmed the man's face and scoffed. He went limp and fell back, his face covered in boils and bleeding sores, and the air suddenly filled with the smell of rotten decay. It made Pony sick. She knew that some people thought that kind of deception was a good tactic. In fact, it was Captain Kuritsuchi's until he was imprisoned, but she had never been fond of it. The Birdman said, "Well, it looks like Sid just dropped to 83rd, but let's hear a cheer for our new number 82, Polly Pox. Up next we have our number 21, the Manitor, versus the gatekeeper of the top 20, Sergeant Steele. We'll keep the betting pool open for another 5 minutes, but once you hear the bell the blood will flow." After he finished, two new figures entered the cage and began circling and flexing for the audience. Manitor had two bull horns, a big gold ring in his nose, and dark ebony skin. He was a 6-foot slab of muscle. She was horrified when Manitor, dressed only in a pair of boxing trunks, saw her in the crowd and gave her a wink. Conversely, Sergeant Steele debuted a camouflage sleeveless t-shirt and a pair of camouflage pants. His flat top hair was perfectly styled, and he continued to wear his black shades. For Pony, those 5 minutes were among the most uncomfortable of his life. No matter what she did, Manitor just seemed to stare at her, and she didn't think the predatory, possessive look in his eye was a good sign. When the bell rang and Steele struck Pony in the face with a fist covered in metal, Pony was genuinely grateful. Unfortunately, Steele only received that one blow. For the next 3 minutes, Manitor struck Steele hard in the face and abdomen. He didn't stop until he delivered a powerful uppercut to Steele's chin, rendering him unconscious. Pony would normally be thrilled by such a demonstration of strength and skill, but she didn't like the way he stared at her. It made her feel vulnerable, nude, and filthy. What an upset. Since he made it to the top 20, Manitor here has earned a wish. So what will it be, big guy? Money, booze, a challenge, what's your wish? He asked the audience, holding up Manitor's arm when the bird mask returned. With a deep laugh, Manitor pointed with his hand and said, "I want her." Suddenly, two masked men grabbed Pony by the arms and began to drag her away, but they froze when they saw the mark and retreated so that everyone could see it. "Sorry big guy, that one is claimed. If you want her, you know the rules," the bird mask sneered. With a laugh, Manitor said, "Then, I challenge the fool who claimed her. I've been looking for someone to keep me warm, and she looks," he licked his lips and said, "perfect." Pony's entire body ached to flee. She could take him, but losing would have dire repercussions, a part of her cried. Too high to take a chance. 4 masked men grabbed Pony and held her motionless as she attempted to flee. She heard Izuku say, "You have 3 seconds to let her go, before I burn you alive." The 4 men shuddered and retreated as Izuku approached, and the room suddenly became extremely hot and charged with electricity. Izuku reached down to assist Pony in standing up, whispering, "Are you okay?" "I'm so sorry, I didn't think this would happen." Pony gave a weak smile, "I'm fine. This isn't my first underground pit fight. Just go kick his ass, okay?" Izuku nodded, but Pony gave him a hug before he could get away, and he gave it back. "As the higher-ranked fighter, I set the rules. You want my girl, well you better be prepared to kill for her. As rank 10, I declare this a deathmatch. Forfeit your challenge or your life. Your choice." Izuku yelled as he moved away and approached the cage. "I accept. Once I'm done breaking you, I'm going to spend all night breaking your whore, might even turn her into a broodmare. What do you say to that?" Manitor simply laughed as the man wearing the bird mask fled the cage as quickly as he could. When the door closed behind him, Izuku roared, "I am Entei, the Flame Emperor. You dare challenge me, try to take what is mine." Your death will be agonizing. He threw his shirt to Pony. When the bell rang, Manator launched a barrage of punches, and Izuku made no attempt to block them, shocking Pony. Izuku took blow after blow, but instead of recoiling or shifting, the Manator let out a painful scream as everyone saw his hands covered in smoke and burns. Everyone heard the sizzle of meat and fat as Izuku's feeble jab landed like a wrecking ball on Manator's exposed, emerald flame-covered gut. Izuku hardly moved. Manator roared as he charged at Izuku, attempting to gore him with his horns, but Izuku remained motionless. Manator stumbled back, clutching his stomach. He simply clenched his fist, condensing so much green flame that it resembled an emerald star. Everyone saw Izuku's shoulders being skewered by Manator's horns, but once again, Izuku showed no signs of pain. Instead, he caused 2 snaps by slamming his glowing fist into the Manator's chin. The first was the horns buried in Izuku's shoulders as they broke at their base, and the second was Manator's neck as his head was violently flung back and almost knocked off. This is the cost of hubris. Anyone else want to try to steal from me? Roared Izuku as he tore out the horns. Sadly, my opponent seems to be a coward, so this will have to do, unless Entei, feel like putting on a show for these people. The large man with light brown hair said as he approached the cage and heard a clap. Izuku chuckled. And fight you, Rappa? Hell no. I haven't earned that challenge yet. You're just going to have to be patient, number 1. All right, little emperor, go have some fun with your woman. I'll make sure you get paid, Rappa said, rolling his eyes. Izuku bowed. Thanks, I think I'll do that. He scooped up Pony and left the cage, causing people to move out of his way. Izuku was careful to keep her face hidden from the interested onlookers the entire time. He didn't need anyone to recognize her face because this was already a dire situation. I'm so sorry, Pony. I had no idea this would happen. I'm such a moron. I never should have risked you like that. I just thought you might like to see a fight or two, and Rappa is actually a great fighter, so I thought you might like it, but, Stupid, stupid, stupid. Now you probably hate me, and, Izuku said, releasing Pony and tearing off his mask as he fell to his knees after they had moved far enough away. Izuku, shut up. You didn't do anything wrong tonight, but I have questions, and I expect answers. Am I understood? Pony said, slapping him on the head with her knuckles. Izuku nodded, and Pony grinned. Good, now let's go eat. I'm starving. Pony took Izuku's hand and they began to walk. After about 20 minutes, Izuku led Pony inside a small restaurant that was tucked away among many larger, more ostentatious ones. Get out, we're closed. I don't know how many times I have to tell you fools, but go the fuck, a big man with a Doberman's head growled from the back, but as soon as he saw Izuku, he smiled and said, oh, it's you pup. Well, why didn't you warn me you were stopping by early? Sorry boss bus. Planes changed at the last minute. Pony, this is my favorite boss, and owner of the Oasis Grill, Mr. Anudum Bus or Boss Bus. Izuku winced and scratched the back of his head. He was dismissed by Bus. Yeah, problem is pup, I'm only halfway through the prep, so unless you want to work your magic back here, it's going to take a bit. Bus looked at Pony and laughed, wouldn't suggest leaving your girlfriend behind though. Cute thing like that is bound to get snapped up if you do. Bus chuckled until he saw how annoyed Izuku appeared. The older man was a little confused by it. He had known the child for years, and he had never seen him appear upset over anything. Pony fortunately intervened to defuse the situation, saying, well boss, I might be cute, but I pack a punch. How? The older man laughed as Pony pretended to punch him, saying, I like this one. She's got spirit. I'll keep her company, kid. You do your thing. When Pony shooed him away, Izuku turned to face him and grinned, saying, well, anything for you princess. After Izuku left, Bus motioned for Pony to take a seat. His smile had turned into a severe expression. Pony sat staring at the man in confusion until he began to speak again, saying, I know what you are, Little Reaper, and I am aware of Izuku's situation. My family has always been strongly spiritually aware. Pony attempted to interrupt, but Bus glared her into silence. Hazashi saved my life once, and while we did not know each other for a long time, he was a friend. That boy is like a son to me, so I'm giving you this one chance. Bus snapped his fingers, causing Pony's body to lock up. Convince me why I shouldn't gut you right now to protect him. Pony stopped struggling and attempted to speak, but the words caught in her throat. Bus snapped, Don't try to lie or trick me. My quirk, soul dominance, won't let you. You know your own intentions, so my quirk does as well. It only works on weak spirits, so I haven't been able to affect Izuku since he was 8, but you more than qualify. Pony turned away, her stomach churning with anger, shame, and horror. She sensed he wasn't lying, but she was unsure of how to respond or what to say. She had a responsibility to fulfill, so she was doomed, even though she liked Izuku and would confess to herself that she might have a crush on him. Pony turned to confront Bus. The only answer I can give you is that I can't. I want to get to know Izuku. I want to be a captain someday, but to do those things, I have to do what must be done. Boss, the fuck are you doing? I brought her here for a nice night, not whatever this crap is. Izuku glanced at Pony and growled, did you use your quirk on her? How fucking dare you? As he entered the room carrying a platter of teriyaki beef. The platter clattered to the floor when he saw what was happening. As Izuku's anger grew, the room became extremely hot, but Pony quickly put an end to it by saying, he wanted me to prove, I wouldn't hurt you. That I wouldn't betray you. I can't, because I will. Everyone in the room stared at Izuku in shock as the heat stopped rising and he turned to smile and say, I know, but I don't care. Izuku tapped her forehead and said, I want to get to know you better, and see where this goes. Pony felt as though his power had sliced through her restraints. Izuku was blushing. Maybe, we can just talk for a while. You said you want to understand me. Well, I want to understand you too. If you want. Pony simply gave him a hug since she was at a loss for words. Stupid. Stupid hormones. Stupid teenagers. Stupid love. I won't accept this. Don't worry, I'll keep protecting your boy. No matter what. Bus complained as he rolled his eyes and turned to leave after a short while. He was simply ignored by the teenagers. Izuku ran off and came back with a rack of ribs after Pony went back to her seat. As Pony fumbled herself while digging into the ribs and swooning over their tenderness and juicy texture, Izuku laughed. After the rack was reduced to a heap of bones, Izuku ran off once more and came back carrying a bowl of pulled teriyaki pork, a basket of buns, and some condiments. So Pony, I don't really know anything about you, so I don't know where to even start. Izuku cleared his throat as they were preparing sandwiches for one another. He laughed in shame and scratched the back of his head like a dog. Pony murmured, let's start with something simple. What do you know about Soul Society? Namely how areas are broken up. Izuku paused for a moment. From what I remember, there's the Seraite, where the Gotai 13 and nobles live, and Rukongai outside it made of 80 districts on each side for 320 districts total. What I read said that the areas closest to the Seraite are calm and nice, but the further out you go the more lawless and slum-like it becomes. That's about it. Pony breathed deeply. You're right so far, but there is an area beyond that, the Wairodo Rondo. These wildlands are home to those who can't remain in even the sloomiest places of Rukongai, the farmers who grow food for the Seraite, and what few hollows that manage to hide in Soul Society. I'm from there. Pony grinned as she looked out the window. My family were farmers. We lived a simple quiet life for the most part. I'm the youngest of 4. In order starting with the youngest is me, Colt, Mustang though he goes by Stang, and the oldest Dale. Izuku laughed. So after their first kid your parents named the rest after horses? Izuku merely blinked owlishly as Pony complained, Dale's full name is Sunotori Clydesdale. Pony blushed. Is it better or worse if I tell you my parents' names are Fjord and Falabella? Surprised, Pony simply nodded, and Izuku begged, if you ever have children, please don't give them a horse name like Orlov or Brumby. Izuku firmly grasped Pony's hand and said, Pony, I need you to make me a promise. Now that you mention it, Orlov does sound nice, said Pony with a sly smile. Izuku yelled and begged, for the love of all that is holy, no, which made Pony chuckle. I was kidding Izuku, I refuse to continue that tradition. I don't even know why great-grandpa Holsteiner started it. Pont shook her head while she was still laughing. Izuku sighed and ate one of Pony's sandwiches, which had pickles and sharp cheddar cheese on it. He didn't think it was bad. Izuku gave Pony a sandwich with a little honey smeared on the bread, and Pony nodded her gratitude before she went on. As the only girl and the youngest, I had to prove I could do anything my brothers could, so I worked harder and longer than any of them. Pony's smile abruptly turned to a dejected frown. When I was 6, a hollow with a bird mask and 6 powerful arms attacked our home. We were able to drive it away, but it almost killed us. The farm was in ruins, and we barely made enough to survive. The following year, things were even tighter, so I made a decision. I left. I had a little bit of Raryoku, and I thought I could make it on my own. Without me, my family wouldn't need nearly as much, and they survived. I managed to send a message a couple years ago to make sure. Izuku lightly squeezed Pony's hand and said, "I'm sorry, Pony." Pony nodded. "No, it all worked out. Sure, I had to live in the slums for a bit, but I made it to Shino Academy, and I met my best friends there. I trained hard and joined Squad 11. I managed to send some money back to my folks, and Abara's family has an exclusive deal to supply a number of restaurants in Seraitai with my family's produce. Things worked out." Despite her tears, Izuku got up and gave Pony a hug. "You miss them, don't you?" Pony nodded, unable to respond due to the lump in her throat and her sniffles. Izuku was just holding Pony's head and gently pet. He breathed deeply. "I guess it's my turn. Because of my dad's genetics, I was declared quirkless when I was 4, and I started getting bullied. It's probably hard to imagine, but back then Katsuki and his friends used to beat me up all the time. The beatings continued till I was 6, and they abandoned me in the woods. I got lost, and that was the first time I saw a hollow." "How did you survive?" Pony asked, freezing and staring at Izuku in disbelief. Izuku turned his back. "A friend sacrificed themselves to help me kill it, but from then on, I was changed. I started training, and doing what I could to help my mom. I found the kendos, boss, and others, and they helped me grow. I've had to do a lot of things I didn't enjoy, like what happened earlier, but I did them, because I owed it to him, my mom, and myself to get as strong as I could be." Pony buried her face in Izuku's chest while grinning. Izuku eventually returned to his seat, and they carried on discussing their likes and dislikes. They both realized they were still holding hands, but they didn't want to stop or let go. Izuku walked Pony home under the stars as it began to grow late. The night was quiet, and they were both thrilled to be able to enjoy it together. Izuku gave Pony a mock bow before he left, but Pony got the last laugh because she grabbed his face, gave him a quick peck on the cheek, and then vanished inside. They all knew the truth, but Lobo made fun of Izuku in his mind the entire way home. Although they knew it would only result in heartache, Izuku was in love. But he had to give it a shot. Izuku admired Pony's passion, and now that he had some knowledge of her past, he felt a connection to her. They understood what it was like to put others' happiness ahead of their own, but that didn't answer the question. This time, which of them would make the sacrifice? "You've got it bad, Deku," Katsuki chuckled. Izuku simply snarled and made an effort to concentrate, but as Katsuki passed him and won the race, a blue blur abruptly appeared on the screen, causing Izuku to begin cursing and complaining. Katsuki looked at his companion and said, "I was kidding, but that's the 3rd round in a row I've beat you. Get your head in the game, shitty nerd. It's no fun if it's not a fair fight. Forget your little girlfriend, and have some fun, damn it." Izuku averted his gaze, but Katsuki briefly noticed the sorrow in his friend's eyes and said, "Pony isn't my girlfriend. It would never work, and you know why." Katsuki grumbled, "This isn't more of your empty shit, is it? You know I think that's all a bunch of crap." Izuku sighed, "Not empty, hollow, and yes. She's a soul reaper. Their whole purpose is killing monsters, and I'm a monster." Sure, she didn't seem bothered by the pit, but Izuku covered his mouth as Katsuki yelled, "You took her to the fucking pit. Are you fucking insane?" Izuku broke down. "No, we don't need one of our moms hearing and getting suspicious. Naomasa is already pissed that I told you. We do not need to involve them too." Izuku growled, "In that case, why did you involve her? This doesn't make any sense." Katsuki shoved him away and nodded. Izuku stroked his temples with his right hand. "Okay, I'll lay it out for you. Firstly, this improves my cover. Now all those women will stop trying to cozy up to me, and convince me to claim them. Secondly, after last night nobody will touch her. She's strong and it wasn't my plan, but thanks to that asshole they think she's mine, so even the top players will think twice." Izuku laughed. "Entei may be rank 10, but he holds the leash of the rank 2 fighter, and Lobo doesn't play." Katsuki laughed. "Cut the bullshit, Deku. You just wanted to show off. You love the little cow, and wanted to let her see, at least a part of you. It's not your real mask, but it's one of them. Stop making excuses, and just accept it. You want her. You care about her. Fucking just do it. Stop being a pussy, and really claim her." Katsuki breathed deeply. "Damn it. I wasn't going to say anything, but the day you started acting weird, I tried to attack her. You attacked my pony, growled Izuku. Technically yes, but she beat me back. Point is, afterwards she asked about you. She fucking wants you, nerd, Katsuki said, raising his hands to defend himself as he felt the room heat up and become charged. Izuku was blushing. She did. Are you sure she wants me, and doesn't just want to use me? Katsuki sighed. Come the fuck on, Deku. I know how to spot a user. They follow me like flies. That girl cares about you, so man up, and stop being a baby bitch. After a minute of reflection, Izuku grinned and said, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Thanks, Kat. Whatever. Just don't fuck it up, and stop being so fucking distant. If it comes to a fight, I've got your back. I'm the only one allowed to beat you, Izuku. Izuku grinned as Katsuki withdrew his right fist, and they resumed their game. The students at Aldera Middle saw numerous changes over the course of the following 2 weeks. Rumors began to circulate that the new student, Pony Tsunotori, was the reason why Izuku, who had always been a recluse, became much friendlier. He followed her wherever she went, and they would both just vanish during lunch, followed shortly after by Katsuki and Reiko. They were unaware that Izuku had shown them a secret route to the roof, which they began to use as a peaceful dining area. On a few occasions, Izuku even brought Pony a bento consisting of grilled chicken and pork dumplings or teriyaki beef and vegetable rice. One day, after a particularly long run of jobs, Izuku began to nod off against Pony's shoulder. When he awoke, the sky was blue, and he was lying in their lap with someone running their fingers through his hair. Izuku was about to bolt, but Pony simply grinned down at him and carried on talking to Reiko, so he stayed. Izuku questioned, what does Soul Society teach when it comes to hollows? I've observed some, but what's the professional perspective? Because Katsuki had to skip lunch the following day. Pony murmured, you handle this, Rei. I never had the patience for long lectures. Reiko gave a nod. Well, to begin, the living can be considered holes. They live and grow unaware of us. When they die they either become a plus or a minus. A plus is a pure soul, and either goes to Soul Society on its own, or we need to perform a conso to help them along. Those pluses become the citizens of Soul Society and linger until it is time for them to be reborn and live new lives. Sometimes they become strong enough to become Soul Reapers during that time along with natural-born Reapers like myself. I've done a few of those, conso, I think, Izuku said, nodding. With a smile, Pony said, good, it's an important part of the job. Reiko went on, minuses are made up of impure souls and souls that lingered too long. They slowly go mad, or slip into negativity and darkness until they are left empty inside, a hollow. They try to fill the emptiness inside them with the souls of others, but that only drives them deeper into emptiness. The same way pluses can become reapers. Hollows become manos. Manos are collections of thousands of souls fighting for control and are the lowest form of evolved hollows. Nothing more than an incredibly powerful beast driven by instinct. Once one soul becomes strong enough to take control of the horde they become an Ijuka. A more focused being, but constantly looking for more souls to maintain control, or they'll return to Manos. Izuku gave a nod. Okay, is that it though? An eternity of hunger and emptiness. That doesn't seem right. Reiko shifted her gaze. There's supposed to be another level, vast lord, but I don't know anything about them. All the records are restricted, and there isn't much to start with. The only thing I know is they're supposed to be stronger than captains. Izuku grinned and shrugged, saying, that sucks, but thanks for filling me in. It could help, and maybe I'll run into one of those vast things. Get you some good data. Sighing, Reiko said, for once, I hope not. A problem surfaced a few days later. Soul Society was growing more and more agitated as the hunter had not been seen in weeks. Before the two Reapers could even get out of their Gigai, a few extremely weak hollows appeared and vanished. At last an Ijuka, a hollow of appropriate power, emerged. You ready? Izuku whispered to Entei as he and Izuka approached it. Entei sighed. Only this one time. You'd better make this worth it, or I'll take matters into my own hands. Izuku grumbled. What are you going to do? You can't take over my body like Lobo can. With a dark laugh, Entei said, I can burn away your pants. That should get her attention. As they approached, Izuku lifted his hand in front of his face and clawed down, causing his hollow mask to appear on his face, and he let out a hollow roar that sounded like a howl. Izuku blushed and complained, Stupid pervy cat. Izuku threw Entei's unreleased blade to Izuka, saying, "Okay, sis. Time to put on a show." Pony first noticed it against the moon as it clawed at another hollow, the hunter, while Reiko and Pony were racing to face the new hollow when they felt an unfathomably strong pressure. When they were close enough, Pony noticed a humanoid hollow wearing shorts and a bone-white vest with a long mane of emerald hair that hung wild down to the middle of its back. It had a hollow mask that resembled a wolf on its face, and mint fur covered its arms, legs, and torso. Reiko began recording in her book right away, but Pony was unsure. Why did her heart skip a beat when she watched this beast battle? They discovered Izuku, tending to an injured shoulder while hiding behind some cover. Pony hurried to assist him, but as soon as she met his eyes, she sensed something was wrong. Pony ignored the emotion and hurried to do what she could, but her healing Kaido, was extremely weak. Izuku nevertheless gave her a smile, but it felt inappropriate, like someone making a favorable impression. "We need to get out of here. That thing is stronger than any of us. If the hunter hadn't attacked it, I think I might have died," Izuku said before she could ask. Reiko nodded in response to Pony's sneer, saying, "He's right, Pony. This is an Ejuka. It's near captain level, we'd never stand a chance." Pony snarled, "That's weak talk. I won't get beat by some third-rate hollow." To the horror of Izuka and Reiko, Pony hurled her blade at the Ejuka who looked like an amphibian. "Show them our power, Tsuno no Omo." Pony yelled as she charged, and to her credit, she was able to pierce the hollow's back, but that just seemed to enrage it. "Traitor, coward, weakling, working with reapers against your own kind. I will tear you to pieces and become the next Gran Rei Hawako." The Ejuka yelled, pushing Lobo away. It then rounded on Pony, ready to tear her apart with its claws, but stopped just before they could do so. Pony sensed a familiar set of arms encircling her and protecting her with his body. Pony expected to see Izuku when she looked up, but instead she saw a hollow wolf mask with 2 emerald rings in a pool of darkness staring at her through the eye holes. The hunter let her go after a moment and whirled around in rage as it began to howl again, this time challenging, exposing the 4 long gashes on its back. Before it seemed to stop, the pressure the wolf released began to build and thicken, making it difficult to breathe. Pony's senses warned her to flee because the pressure was still increasing. It had just grown so strong that she was no longer able to feel it, her conscious mind was shutting it out for its own defense. The Ryutsu this one hollow was releasing caused the clouds above to twist and circle, with sporadic emerald lightning forking between them as they darkened into storm clouds. It was both terrifying and lovely. The wolf barely moved until it lowered its hand and Pony heard a faint, distorted whisper. Suddenly, it raised a hand and emerald lightning struck it. Rayo del Dragon Alador, an emerald dragon formed of lightning suddenly rushed toward the Ejuka like a vicious snake. As it struck it, a flash occurred and a loud howl resembling thunder could be heard. The reapers watched as the flash dimmed and the hunter swiftly carried the smoking, disintegrating form of the Ejuka away. It vanished in a recognizable crackle of static, palming its masked face all the way. When Pony turned to question Izuku, after the hollows had been removed, he saw him attempting to flee, but it was moving much more slowly than usual. Pony simply stepped in front of Reiko as she attempted to pursue him, saying, "Rei, go report what we just saw to Soul Society. We may need to get an update to our orders. I'll go after Midoriya." "Fine, but don't hurt him. His injury didn't look serious, but he could have others he's hiding. Go check on your boyfriend." Reiko sighed, noticing the change in Pony's tone. She smiled slightly and moved aside before Pony could respond. With a frown, Pony said, "Yeah, sure. I think this conversation is going to be very informative." Pony began running after Izuku, and to her amazement, she was able to catch up. The last straw came when Pony yelled, "Hey, wait up." After another block, noticing Izuku's terrified expression, Pony growled, "Bakudo number 1, sigh," and extended a hand, pointing with her index and middle fingers. Izuku stumbled as his arms were forcibly locked behind their back, but this only seemed to make them run more quickly and frantically. That only made Pony more irritated, so she approached and yelled, "Bakudo number 4, Hanawa." Her hands began to crackle with yellow energy. Pony was about to yell and question Izuku, as a yellow rope snaked and bound him, but she was taken aback by what she saw. Izuku was sobbing and shaking while he pleaded in a more feminine voice, "Please, I'm sorry. Please don't kill me. Please, I don't want to die. Oni-chan, please save me. The next instant, the rope broke and the hunter was in front of Pony again, holding a shaky Izuku in its arms. To Pony's surprise, she heard a small, distorted whisper, "Shish, it's okay Izuka. Big bro is right here. I'm sorry, I promise, nobody's going to hurt you." The trembling figure cuddled closer to the hollow as if it were the only thing keeping them from disappearing. Pony was startled to see a matching blade on its left after witnessing the hunter stoop down and strap Izuku's Zanpakuto to its right hip. It sat on an air conditioner and shifted, holding the teenager in its arms for protection. Suddenly it said, "I was an idiot to believe this plan would work. None of my others have, when you were involved. Well, little Ram, I know you have questions, and I'll answer them, but if I think for an instant you're going to hurt my little sister, I will cut you down. No matter how much I care for you, she's my family, and I will not abandon her. Who are you? I don't know what you've done to Izuku, but I'll find a way to kill you if you don't start making sense." Pony said, raising her blade because she couldn't make sense of any of this and it was just too much for her. The hollow began to laugh and lifted its hand over its masked face, saying, "Oh, little Ram. I thought that would be easy. I am Izuku." Pony was taken aback when the mask broke apart into green spirit particles, which Izuku then inhaled. With a smile, he said, "So, yeah. Hi, Pony." As she stumbled, Pony fell backward onto her butt and said, "No. No. Izuku Midoriya is a soul reaper, not a hollow. This is impossible." Izuku breathed a sigh of relief as his hollow-typical Shinigami attire. "It's not, and also, I'm a reaper and a hollow. More specifically, I'm a Vizard, a hollow-feed soul reaper. And this adorable scamp is Izuka. She's a mod soul I found shortly after becoming what I am. She was alone, and desperate for someone to look after her, so I became her brother. Due to what I am, normal Geek can break down after a few uses for me, but Izuka is special. She's an endurance-type mod soul, and as a result we've been cleaning up this area together for almost 10 years. 10 years? How is that possible?" exclaimed Pony, who then scowled and asked, "Are you why there aren't any wandering spirits around?" Izuku was scratching his head. "Yes, but not for the reason you're thinking. I created a place where all of them can collect safely, and exist without being hunted until they are ready to receive Konso, or they start to become hollows. I didn't lie when I said I only eat hollows, and they don't remain with me, like they would if eaten by another hollow." Izuku sighed when he noticed Ponies, "So yes, I absorb their strength, and Ryutsu, but I also purify them and send them on to Soul Society, if that is where they belong. Wicked or evil souls are locked inside me for a time, but Lobo and Entei helped me create a special ritual that I perform twice a month, where I release them all at once into hell. I'm really tired the day after, but even at half strength I'm still a powerful opponent." Pony laughed. "Don't bullshit me, Midoriya. Entei was the name you went by in the fighting pit." Izuku sighed. "Yep, but it's also my Reaper Zanpakuto's name. My hollow Zanpakuto isn't ready to share its release command with me yet, but I do know his name, Lobo de Tormenta, Storm Wolf. I'm sorry, Pony-chan. I thought I did a good job of being Oni-chan, but I must have messed up. This is all my fault. I've ruined everything. Please don't hate him. It would break his heart." Izuka sat on the floor in front of Izuku, looking dejected, after finally calming down and escaping Izuku's embrace. "Izuka, shut up," Izuku snarled in desperation as he flushed. "Please, Pony-sama, he talks about you all the time, he loves," Izuka said, bowing her head to a bewildered Pony. Izuku desperately covered her mouth with both hands and said, "I don't do that. Izuka, don't make things up." Suddenly, Izuku looked disgusted and withdrew his now wet hands, saying, "Did you really lick my hands? That's nasty." Izuka continued to stare at Pony. "He loves you enough to take the risk of setting up this whole plan so you wouldn't figure out his secret until he was ready. He just wanted to get to know you without having to be afraid he'd slip up. The whole point of me acting like him was so you'd see us in the same room. That way if you got suspicious you'd think he couldn't be Lobo. I know it was dumb, but we risked our lives just so that there was a chance. Does that mean nothing?" Pony was unsure of how to feel. She had acknowledged to herself that her crush was either hollow or partially hollow following the altercation. "Izuku, do you promise no matter what I ask you, you'll tell me the truth?" She sighed, needing more information even though that shouldn't be possible. "I don't see what harm it can do at this point, but..." Pony, I know you don't trust me. Not now anyway, so I'll make it so that someone will call me on it if I try. Pony appeared perplexed and flinched when Izuku pulled out both of his katanas, but a moment later he plunged them into the ground. Izuku looked around hesitantly, and Izuka reached up and patted his knee, making him sigh as well. I wonder if you can tell which spirit scares souls more? Izuku asked, grinning. When Pony was able to see again, she saw a large white wolf wearing a lupin black hollow mask with green and red streaks along the top and sides, adding color and making the mask appear even more menacing. The two blades appeared to burst into emerald lightning and flames, creating a blinding flash. The other is a similar-sized liger-like cat with an emerald flame mane, saber-toothed fangs, and red stripes running across its blue coat. The cat, on the other hand, was unimpressed and sat at regal attention, giving off a stuffy noble vibe as though it was above everything that came before it. The wolf appeared to be quite happy to simply lie next to Izuka and allow her to caress him. Since the Hollow's mask was an inversion of the one Izuku had worn, Pony noticed right away how similar both of them were to the aliases Izuku had used for them. Close your mouth. Your awe is warranted, but an empress does not slouch and look like they are attempting to catch flies. Perhaps our other has chosen poorly. What say you, Mutt? The cat said, drawing Pony out of her awe. The wolf was grumbling, I think you should be nice, you mangy hairball. It's not her fault. You know as well as I do that manifestation isn't a normal or easy trick to perform. Also, screw off, she's cute. The pup made a good choice. Izuku rolled his eyes and said, guys, not the time. Pony, the lazy hound is my inner hollow, Lobo, and the grumpy cat is my reaper spirit, Entei. As you can see, they have no filter, so they'll call me out if I'm being less than honest. The cat growled at the wolf. I've heard of this technique, but I didn't think it could be done. Izuku, have you unlocked your Banki? Pony stammered as she reached out and felt the rippling heat emanating from Entei. Entei laughed. Of course not, my lady. Though he is closer than he knows. This is simply an exercise to help him train, and allow us to stretch our legs. Also, do not touch me if you wish to keep that hand. Only one may touch me, and you have yet to earn that right. I'm sorry, so, can I assume everything has been true so far? Said Pony, drawing back her hand. Laughed. Yup, the pup is utterly smitten with you. Also, I hope you liked the light show earlier. My Howling Dragon Bolt is an incredibly powerful attack, and he doesn't use it lightly. You should feel honored. Entei laughed. Still nothing compared to my Kote no Ongeshi Emperor's Rend, but I will admit it has some strength. Okay, explanation time. How did Izuku become a hollow? Said Pony, glaring at them. Lobo sighed, that's my fault. I used to be a normal Ajuka, and I found Izuku when he was really small. I don't eat non-hollow souls, haven't for a long time. He was hurt, and I was bored. We ended up being attacked by a hollow that I knew was Conquestor, but if I remember correctly you already heard this story, and met that hollow. Pony seemed perplexed, so Lobo laughed, the hollow that attacked your farm, it escaped through a Garganta into the living world, am I right? Pony gave a nod, it's dead. It was Izuku's first kill, after it nearly erased me, and I merged with Izuku. Don't ask how, we won't say, for the safety of Soul Society, it has to remain a secret or any disgruntled Reaper might try to use the knowledge to get stronger. Suffice it to say, the process should have killed him soon after, but instead we became one. So what, do you slowly consume him from within? Pony asked, glaring at the hollow. Izuku sighed, Pony, he's not a parasite, he's a symbiotic soul shard. We're partners in the same way Entei and I are. He saved my life, and he's never hurt a re. Lobo got up and yelled, Don't you dare finish that sentence Izuku. I'm old enough to remember the time before the wave, and if you think I was always this controlled you're wrong. I was a savage hunter once. I didn't care who I consumed, be they plus, minus, Reaper, or Manos, but I am not that beast anymore. She has a right to hate me for who I was. Can we move on, please? I want to see the place you've hidden all the souls, but before we go. Lobo asked, and Pony complied because she was taken aback by his humanity and emotion. Preened Entei, since a Banki is required to be considered a captain-class Reaper, Izuku is a solid lieutenant level. Though we know almost nothing about the spells you cast, and we could probably fight weaker captains if we had to with just our power. Lobo appeared to be contemplating it. We lost a lot of power in the merger, but we gained it all back and more since. I'd guess I'll evolve at some point in the next year, and we won't have to consume any hollows after that if we don't want to, even if our consumption is even more efficient than normal reaping. By the way, Tsunatori, the Reapers got most of their information correct, but not all of it, and as someone on the cusp of Vasto Lord I should know. So up until now, Pony blinked. Izuku averted his gaze, and Entei snorted while puffing up his chest, saying, "You haven't seen anything. The brat hasn't even released me yet. There isn't a soul, Reaper, or hollow around that can even serve as a warm-up for our true power." Izuku then got up and caused both spirits to re-emerge as spirit particles, which he then inhaled deeply and swallowed. Pony looked into Izuku's eyes and, without thinking, took his hand after he had put his blades back in their scabbards. Izuku said, "Take my hand, and I'll show you the world through my eyes." As the world seemed to slow around them, Pony felt as though she was being drawn through syrup as Izuku pulled her in close to him and held her close. The warm, comforting sensation of Izuku's reishi washed over her, leaving a charge across every nerve ending of her skin. With her in his arms, he started to run, and with each long step, Pony watched the world change and revolve around them. Pony was surrounded by the same static sound that always occurred when Izuku ran away, and she saw entire blocks disappearing more quickly than she had ever thought possible. When Izuku finally released Pony's hand, she was standing on the edge of a forest, feeling a little lightheaded and breathless. To her dismay, Pony felt the warmth and electricity disappear from her surroundings. Pony recovered for a minute before asking, "What was that?" "It felt amazing, and faster than anything I've ever experienced." Pony nodded, and Izuku led her a short distance into the woods before raising a hand and creating a distortion open in the air. Izuku grinned and said, "My Sonito, it functions similarly to Reaper Flash Steps, or so I'm told, but it doesn't require as much strength to perform, and is undetectable except for the buzzing at each end." Izuku quickly gave her a stern look, saying, "I need you to promise not to try to perform a konso while you're here unless asked. These people are my friends, and I will not have them forced to do something they are not ready for." Izuku heard Pony mumble, "A Kyoman. How does he know an advanced Bakudo barrier spell, and how does he maintain it? This is impossible," as she gasped and followed him. Pony paused to feel the waves of reishi surrounding her and sensed dozens of souls in the trees just out of her line of sight. Izuku laughed and said, "The door is a Kyoman, yes. It's one of only 2 spells I know. The rest of this is the second spell, Hashigyo Sogai, and both are maintained by me. I have to come by at least once a day to recharge them, but, you can feel them now, can't you? It's safe. I brought the Reaper here to meet you. Why not come and say hello?" Izuku shouted before she could ask. "Aniki, will you play with us? Aniki, we missed you. Aniki, who's the pretty lady, is she your girlfriend?" exclaimed 4 young children as they ran out and began to cheer and try to get Izuku's attention as several older-looking ghosts poked out their heads. "Is it all right with you if I am? A big strong girl like you can share, right?" asked Pony, stroking the girl's black hair as Izuku flushed at the last question. "Okay, but remember, I saw him first, so no kissy stuff. Promise?" The girl giggled. "I promise. Now, could you do me a favor and answer just a few questions?" Pony asked, grinning and hooking the girl's pinky. The girl nodded enthusiastically, and Pony cocked her head to observe Izuku. "Does Izuku take good care of all of you?" Pony asked. The child laughed. "Aniki is the best. He saved me from a mean monster with a rat face. He brought me here a while ago, while he helps me. He says I have to go somewhere else though. A nice place where I can find my daddy, but I want to make sure mommy is okay first, so he promised to give her a message as soon as she wakes up." Izuku gives her a, "I'll explain later" look, from behind the girl as Pony nods. "Did he offer to help them all too?" Pony asks, pointing to all the ghosts in the area. After giving it some thought, the girl shakes her head and says, "Aniki offered to help, but some of them just want to be left alone to think before they move to this new place he takes about. Izu doesn't seem to mind though, and even when the scary noises happen he just has all of us hide while he protects us." The young girl tries to look serious, but all she can manage is a cute pout. "Aniki is nice, so you better be nice too, pretty lady, or I'm gonna be big enough to marry him now, so you better not hurt him before that." Pony smiles and says, "I'll remember that, and I'll try to protect him for you until then, okay?" The girl smiles and gives Pony a quick hug before she and the other children run off while an elderly man who appears to be very tired calls on them. Pony walked around for an hour asking ghosts queries until Izuku touched her shoulder. Thanks for humoring Ino. She's a cute kid, but her mom was in a car accident with her in the backseat. Her mom has been in a coma ever since, but I heard some doctors say she's showing signs of waking up soon. It'll suck, but letting her say goodbye should help them both get some closer, and a gentleman offered to go with her so she's not alone in the Rukongai. Also, the scary noises she mentioned are the few times a hollow formed. It's only happened once in the last 2 years, but it was memorable. Pony gasped, I don't like this. I should turn you over the head captain right now, but I won't. If I find any sign of deception, or that you are a threat, that will change before you can so much as blink, but Pony murmured, I hate you. With a smile, Izuku said, whatever you saw, my little lamb. Izuku then began to stutter back into the woods, followed by Pony, who said, now wait a second. I never agreed to. We're not, I hate you. Izuku was just chuckling, it's okay lamb. I know you don't mean it, and I feel the same way. You're different from every other person I've met, but I know we can't actually be together. You could never love a monster, like me, and I'll never be good enough, but I still care deeply about you, so, let me lie to myself, just for tonight. Please. What did you have in mind? Pony asked, tentatively reaching out and taking Izuku's hand once more. After an hour, both of them had returned to their Gigite bodies, and Izuku was guiding Pony to the summit of the city's tallest skyscraper. They could see the entire city in front of them when they reached the location Izuku wanted to show her, and Izuku grinned at Pony's amazed expression at all the lights beneath them. Izuku takes a few items out of the bag he brought and makes a simple dinner for the two of them. Pony observes his well-practiced motions as he chops chicken and vegetables like a pro chef and then cooks everything with rice. They ate in silence, but Pony couldn't help but notice Izuku's unwavering smile, one she had never seen him wear before. It was captivating. After they finished their meal, Izuku sat facing a wall in motion for Pony to take a seat next to him. Pony chose to make fun of him, and as a result, he got a smile that got warmer. Pony murmured, so, I'll admit this place is nice, and your cooking is surprisingly good, but what's the point of this? Why are we here? Most people think the clear night sky is the most beautiful. Izuku looked up at the sky, focused his Ryutsu into his finger, and used it to move clouds. But I have always enjoyed the storm, the tempest, and the pitter-patter of rain. The sky grew even darker until a soft rain started to fall, but they remained dry as if under a dome. Izuku reached down and interlaced his finger with Pony's, and she didn't stop him. The wrathful power of the storm and the calming sound that accompanies it are like a lullaby to me. Every roll of thunder is like the beating of nature's heart. I find power and purity beautiful, and I see both in you. Pony, you keep saying you want to understand me, so that's why we're here. I wanted to show you, just who I am. I am the storm, powerful and boundless. Both calming and terrifying, but also pure. Pony noticed that she had lips on her forehead stopped breathing. I know you have big dreams, and in order to reach them, you will have to sacrifice me, so before that I wanted to let you know 2 things. And that is, Pony said in a trembling whisper as she gazed into Izuku's dazzling emerald eyes. Izuku gave her a final kiss. I forgive you. I will never blame you for what has to happen, and secondly, I love you. I know you'll never feel the same, but I do. From the moment I saw you, I knew that you were special. That you were going to do amazing things, and if I must sacrifice myself for that to happen, you may take my life because only you have my heart. You were what I was missing, the calm soothing eye to my storm. Pony inadvertently approached Izuku. I'm not powerful, and if I was pure, I'd know what to do. I've spent years trying to get stronger, like my captain. She's so unbelievably strong. When the second true Kenpachi left to find an opponent worth fighting, he named her his successor, but she's barely acted since. The only way to be accepted as a Kenpachi is to become the strongest member without question, but only one person ever challenged her for the position, and he never even landed a hit on her. She crushed him under the pressure of her power alone. Since then, only our lieutenant is challenged, and only someone who can beat him is permitted to challenge the captain. I want to beat her. I want to be the one to bring our idol, Zaraki, back, but I'm not strong enough, and I don't know if I'll ever be. Izuku, what if I'm right? What if I sacrifice being with you, but in the end, I'm not good enough? Then I'll help you. Whatever time I have left, I'll use it to help you get stronger. My final act with this life will be giving you the wings you need to soar to the top because I know you can. You might doubt it, but I don't. Pony buried her face in Izuku's chest, and he rubbed circles on her back while she let out her emotions. It's okay, Pony. Let it all out, my love. A male voice was heard elsewhere, speaking to a girl with long green hair who was bowing. A mission has come down from the captains. You are to gather your things and prepare for a mission to the living world. It appears your friends have an issue, and require seated support. I know your promotion is still new, but we expect great things from you. 18th seat, Abara Shiozaki. Abara said, I live to serve, sir. Anything for the glory and prestige of Soul Society. Her dark green eyes gleamed as she raised her head. He laughed. It appears they might have found something else as well, the lost heir to your noble house. But Uncle Hisashi is dead? Abara asked, her eyes widening. The man chuckled, but it appears he had a rebellious side. A son, a lost half-reaper in need of collection. Truly this is a momentous day then. I will bring him back personally, and help guide him in understanding our noble purpose. Thank you, and thank the Soul King. Abara bowed her head and vanished in a flash of motion, her face beaming with joy, oblivious to the destruction that lay ahead. The following morning, Pony was still in Izuku's protective embrace. Pony didn't care that the sky was clear and it was just after dawn. As she gazed at Izuku's slumber forehead, I'll find a way. I don't know how, but I don't want to give up on either of my dreams. My old one, to be the strongest, or my new one, to have you by my side. I don't know if Pony nodded her head, I want to find out though, and I'll find a way. Because I don't want one without the other anymore. After all, how can I be the strongest, if I let what I want slip through my fingers? When Izuku woke up a short while later, Pony was still nestled in his lap. He carefully picked her up and hurried to the hotel they were using as a base. Izuku simply texted Reiko to open their window, and a minute later he leapt through it. It was easy to find the remnants of their presence, and it made him laugh that he would have to warn them about it in the future. Reiko didn't show any signs of surprise, and like a true gentleman, Izuku fled once more without saying why, but he did give Pony a final kiss on the temple before vanishing. Pony didn't wake up until she heard slurping noises and smelled cup ramen. Pony looked over and saw Reiko eating her breakfast cross-legged on a chair. On one of their first nights in the living realm, they had attempted cooking and had decided that a lot of fire was either a good sign or wasn't supposed to happen. So, was your second date as good as your first? Reiko asked with a smile when she saw Pony awake. Pony was embarrassed. Yeah, I guess it was. I think I finally got what I wanted. I made the report like you asked, and we're getting more support. They're sending a seated officer to help, so all of this will be over soon and you can show your boyfriend around Soul Society. With how strong he is, I'm sure your squad would happily take him in, Reiko said, attempting to shift the conversation from her friend's concerns. Reiko was shocked to see how pale and concerned Pony appeared. Did they say who? She asked. Tilting her head, Reiko said, that's probably our new teammate. Please be nice, this is our chance to make some connections among the higher-ups. However, before she could respond, someone knocked on their door. Pony went pale even more, and she hurried to see what was going on when she heard Reiko scream. Pony froze and stammered, Ayabara. As soon as she recognized the person. With waist-length green vine hair that was braided into a vine crown around her temples, Abara Shiozaki currently had the appearance of a teenager their own age. Her modest black attire concealed her toned body beneath an elegant skirt and a baggy blouse. Abara opened her arms and said, Pony, thank the Soul King. You look to be unhurt. I read the reports you submitted and the recording Reiko sent. I'm so happy to see my best friends are safe. Bara, what are you doing here? Asked Pony, swallowing a lump in her throat. Abara took an official stance, 18th seat, Abara Shiozaki, at your service. I'll be taking over this mission, and I couldn't be happier. I get to work with my best friends again, and you even managed to find my lost cousin. Truly I am being blessed. Abara's expression widened. It pains me that it came at the cost of two valued comrades, but I will avenge Lorna and Vanna if I am ever faced with that wicked monstrosity of a hollow. Reiko was gasping, what happened? They were so strong. What kind of hollow can just take out two seated officers? Abara's expression darkened as she sighed, but Pony said first, we should wait for Izuku. He knows the area better, and he's a lot stronger than me. Without seeming irritated or prepared to fight, Abara's eyes widened when Pony acknowledged that anyone was stronger than her. Abara saw that Pony's surprised expression had been replaced by a slight smile, and that her eyes had taken on a new warmth. Reiko was giggling. Oh yeah, Bara, our little pony finally fell in love, and it's really cute. Izuku was totally smitten with her. Abara glanced between them and gasped, Izuku Seikiranina, my cousin, managed to sweep our resident tsundere off her feet. Abara gasped, this is marvelous. Love between one of my best friends and my wayward cousin. Oh, my dear pony, you must give me all the details. Please, I must know. It's actually Midoriya, said Pony, blushing and turning away. He didn't know anything about his father's family, but his mother said. Abara sighed, how scandalous. You've already introduced yourself to his mother. Pony, you cunning filly. With a frown, Pony rolled her eyes and said, a horse joke. Really, I changed my mind. I didn't miss you at all. No, it was only a jest. I'm sorry, Abara said, looking pale. Abara nodded joyfully as Reiko laughed, well, it's time we headed for school. Why not come with us, Bara? Izuku will be overjoyed to meet you. I'm sure of it. Pony then went to change. Pony's friends failed to notice the terrified expression on her face. After 30 minutes, the three were getting close to Aldera when they noticed a happy boy with green hair waiting for them. Then, from around the corner, a blonde boy with explosions exploding from his palms screamed, die, and Abara gasped. Abara was about to act when her friends intervened, and she noticed their smiles as if nothing were wrong. With a slight lean, the green teen appeared to avoid the flying tackle with ease, and Abara watched as he caught the boy's leg while he was still in the air and used the momentum to try to slam him into the ground. The blonde made an amazing move by pivoting with an outstretched hand, softening the slam with an explosion, then moving forward and pivoting again to execute a heel kick into the green teen's side. The blonde attempted to extend the kick and gain some distance, but his opponent would not allow him to do so. The green-haired boy grabbed the offending ankle again and slammed his knee into the blonde's stomach, using the brief moment of confusion to do so. This time, it worked, and the blonde was left gasping on the ground. They saw as the boy with green hair attempted to strike the dazed blonde in the face, but instead he flicked his forehead and raised a hand. The trio resumed their approach after the blonde grumbled and accepted the hand before rushing away. When they were sufficiently close, Izuku grinned at them, Pony in particular, and made a small bow, which caused Pony to roll her eyes. Izuku laughed and gave Pony a surprise hug before asking, did you enjoy the show? She said, I'd like to introduce you to our best friend, Abara Shiozaki. You know, the one we mentioned before. Reiko shrugged, Katsuki is improving. He actually managed to hit you this time. Reiko smiled excitedly as he turned to face the new girl. Izuku cocked his head, oh yeah, I remember. You said she's the leader of your little group. It's nice to meet you, Shiozaki. It's nice to know there's someone else out there who can manage to direct my feisty little ram. Izuku scoffed, just because I can't beat you yet doesn't mean I won't get there someday, and when I do you'd better watch out. Pony blushed but stayed in her arms. Izuku continued to grip her tightly. Don't threaten me with a good time, my dear. The best way to get stronger is to surround yourself with people to compete with, and let them drive you to highs you didn't think were possible. With a nod, Abara said, well said, cousin. Excuse me, Izuku froze. Koko, you've been here for almost 7 months and not once did you feel it necessary to mention that one of your best friends was his cousin. Abara said, sulking and pointing at Reiko. In my defense, I didn't realize who he was until Pony got here, Reiko said, turning away. Koko, that was still almost a month ago. Did it just slip your mind, or, Abara sniffled, did you not think it important that one of my only living relatives didn't even know I existed? Abara began tapping her foot like a disinterested mother. Reiko looked pale and mumbled, and no, I just wanted to save it as a surprise. That way you both would be on equal ground when you met, and could get to know each other without any interference from us. Of course I thought it was important, Bara. You've had to represent your clan mostly on your own for so long. I just didn't want to mess anything up between you. With a slight smile, Abara nodded and said, thank you for your consideration, then. You're a good friend. Sure, friend. That's enough, right? It always has been and it will never be anything else. I just have to accept that. Was Reiko's only depressing thought as the other three began to leave so Abara and Izuku could talk. Abara was enthusiastically clarifying, our clan has seen a string of bad luck the last few generations. Between hollow attacks, illness, and assassinations it was believed that only your grandparents and I remained from the main 2 branches, but now, I'm just so happy. We were beginning to fear that a merger might be the only way to maintain us, but you are the answer we've been searching for. Wait, by merger do you mean? Izuku blinked. Abara murmured, an arranged marriage. Yes. Don't get me wrong, I would have agreed to save the clan, but... Don't ever say that. Never sacrifice your own happiness for anyone. Do you hear me? A life without love and joy is a hollow one. Never settle for what must be, and always fight for what should be, Izuku said, grabbing Abara and applying an unbearably heavy pressure as he looked her in the eye. Abara simply nodded and said, okay, cousin. I'll try, but could you let me go? Your spirit pressure is crushing me. She felt helpless in the face of the tempest. Izuku fled in humiliation and dread. I'm sorry, these things are important to me. I've seen how lonely my mom is, and heard so many souls lament what could have been. I don't want you to have to go though that too. If we really are cousins, I want you to live a long happy life full of joy and love because not everyone is as lucky as you are, and I'll fight to the death to make it possible. Abara was beaming with pride. That proves it. You really are Uncle Hisashi's son. After my parents were killed, I was so alone, but your father and grandparents took me in and cared for me. I miss him so much, but seeing you, I know he's not really gone because he lives in you. Thank the Soul King we got the chance to meet. Truly this is a blessing so monumental that I can't fathom it. A teacher saw Abara at that point and demanded that she leave. She smiled back when Izuku whispered to her to wait up on the roof before she could. Abara merely stared when Izuku, dressed as a reaper, emerged from a concealed hatch in the floor 20 minutes later. Izuku chuckled. Yeah, Reiko gave me a similar look the first time she saw me like this, but I'm not a member of the court squads, so I think it would be rude if I actually wore the uniform. This is just my version, an homage I guess. Abara gave a moment's thought. I see your point, and while the colors are different, most high-ranking Shinigami do customize their Shihakusho. Maybe if you impress them, they will let you make it your official uniform. Abara cocked her head. I felt your pressure earlier, but now I can't feel anything from you. Not even the normal amount. It's like you're not even there. Izuku was scratching his head. I mastered my spirit control a long time ago. I used to attract a lot of hollows, and endanger the people around me, so I got in the habit of wasting as little pressure as possible. It's gotten to the point, I don't leak at all. Abara looked up in awe. That's incredible to be as powerful as I felt earlier, and completely able to lock it away. You're amazing cousin, but can you let it loose for a moment? I want to gauge your strength. Shaking his head, Izuku said, it wouldn't do any good. Abara looked at him doubtfully and asked, why not? Izuku breathed deeply. I get the feeling you won't believe it until you see it, so I'll do it, but not here. If I did it here it would freak out the others, and some of the more fragile souls here might not be able to handle it. Let's go. Izuku pointed to a tall structure in the distance, there. It should be far enough to get the job done. Abara looked worried before Izuku could run off, saying, what about your classes? Education is very important. Izuku grinned and said, I'm top of my class, and I left a friend in charge of taking notes for me. My Gikken, Izuka, is very good at it. This isn't the first time she's needed to do so, since hollows tend to attack randomly, but she's someone I trust. Now let's go. Izuku hurried off, and Abara blanched before trailing behind. How can you use a Sonito? That's a hollow technique, Abara exclaimed, looking scared when they got there. Izuku grumbled, well I didn't exactly have reapers around to teach me any of this. I learned Kendo, Zanjutsu, and Hakuta from my Zanpakuto eventually, but before that I learned from humans. As for Ho-Ho, by the time my Zanpakuto was able to talk to me enough to help, I'd already mastered Sonito. When your choices are either learn to run fast or get eaten, you tend to learn what makes your opponent fast and turn it to your advantage. We agreed that learning Flash Step after would be a waste of time. No offense Abara, but Sonito is just faster and more efficient without leaving a trail or wasting energy. Okay, I see your point, but how did you do it? Hollow techniques require hollow Ryutsu, Abara said, taking a deep breath. Izuku sighed. I have my ways, like I said. You would be surprised what someone can do with the proper drive and an openness to learn. It helps that I spent so much time here, around people that give off hollow Ryutsu all the time. The only skill I really lack is Kido, but without a proper teacher, I don't see that changing. I meant to ask Reiko, but I'm not sure she would be able to help. I know her book is expansive, but I'm not sure if she's the teaching type. Abara was blushing. I expected that keto might be something you didn't know, so I brought a couple books with me. I left them with my bag at our base. I'll show you later. Now, show me how strong you are, please. Izuku rolled his shoulders and sighed. I won't release my Zanpakuto, but I won't need to, in order to prove my point. Abara felt the pressure around her gradually increase, but Izuku seemed to do nothing but stand there. Abara thought it would stop when it got to where she had previously felt it, but it didn't even slow. Abara's senses warned that the pressure was still there even after she was quickly pushed to her knee, then both, then her hands, and finally it just vanished. Izuku grinned. You lasted longer than Reiko or Pony, but here's the issue. Eventually your mind becomes so overwhelmed by what it's feeling that it rejects it as real, and your body is tricked into believing it. My power, I've been told it's captain level, but I've never met anyone who could feel it at its peak, much less when my Zanpakuto is released. Don't believe me, try to hit me with your sword. I read that if my power is greater you won't be able to even nick me, so give it a shot. I won't even move. Abara gave him a worried look, but she decided to follow her cousin's instructions after noticing the utter seriousness in his eyes. To her surprise, she was the one who was thrown back. Abara gasped as she straightened herself after tripping and falling across the roof. This is wonderful. Not since the legends of the Soul King has something like this been seen. I've been meaning to ask about that. Who's the Soul King? Izuku said, tilting his head. After a moment of horrified expression, Abara sighed and said, of course you wouldn't know. The original Soul King is our divine creator. They created the realms as they are now, and served as the linchpin in the wheel of rebirth for uncounted millennia. Izuku looked up. I noticed a lot of past tense in your story so far. Should I be concerned? Abara looked at him with anger. Patience, cousin. I'm getting there. A few hundred years ago, a Soul Reaper believed themselves greater and more deserving to be king, so they attempted a coup, and the court squads of the time did their best, but just before a warrior capable of stopping him could arrive, he succeeded in creating a key to the gates of our Lord's sanctum by sacrificing the lives of an entire city. He was stopped in the end by our Lord's personal guards, but the squads were weakened, and faced many losses. As a result, they were woefully unprepared when the fake king came and ravaged Soul Society on his way to kill the Soul King, and usurp his throne. He succeeded in part, but he wasn't strong enough to handle the pressure of the crown, of being the linchpin, and it caused the first wave to wash over the worlds. Izuku gave a nod. I've heard of these waves before, but not in great detail. Abara grinned. Nobody knows the specifics of what happened, but the man who would become the second Soul King managed to unseat the fake, and stabilize reality with him on the throne. The fake was destroyed, but each transition caused a wave as I mentioned. The first wave killed all of the remaining Quincy. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they were the fake's children. A subrace of humans with the power to dominate Reishi, and destroy hollows. They believed that hollow souls should be destroyed and removed from the cycle. We don't know why his children all suddenly died as soon as he took the throne, but I believe it was divine punishment for the grievous sin their father had committed. The second wave was just as mysterious though. It was filled with hollow Ryutsu, and as a result it caused hollows everywhere to go on a rampage for nearly 3 days. Its other side effect was the change in the living, the development of quirks, as I believe they're called. Izuku replied, I had a friend who called them Fullbrings, but he was the only one I ever met who knew the term. Abara replied, interesting, could I speak to them, and ask a few questions? He became a spirit a long time ago, Izuku said, shaking his head. Abara exhaled, that is unfortunate, but not unexpected. He must have been very old to remember that term. It's only thanks to my promotion to 18th seat that I've heard it whispered. Izuku looked up. You're a seated officer then. Congratulations. According to Pony, it's a great honor. Cousin, I need to know your intentions with Pony. I want to believe they are pure and wholesome, but as her best friend. Abara said with a brief, proud smile before her face darkened. Izuku sat against a wall with his back towards it and closed his eyes as he contemplated saying it out loud. As her best friend, I'll be honest with you. My intentions with Pony. Well, if I was worthy I would marry her and spend every moment of the rest of my existence loving and cherishing her, but I'm not, nor can I ever be. So, I'll help her achieve her dream. I'm going to train her to become as strong as I know she can be, and then help her push beyond even that. I'm not hiding the fact that I'm completely in love with her anymore, but she deserves so much better than me, so I'll protect her until she finds the person she's destined to be with, and then I'll let her go. I intend to spend every moment until then thankful and overjoyed to be able to be near her, but I know it won't work out, and I'll do everything in my power to make sure she's happy. Abara was overwhelmed by the genuine affection and sorrow that came from Izuku, but once she recovered she grasped his hand and promised, I'm going to help you. Normally marriages between nobles and commoners are nearly impossible due to inter-clan politics, but given how powerful you are, I don't see that being an issue this time. I'm going to help you in any way I can, Izuku. Not as her best friend, or your cousin, but a devout believer in true love. It might be hard to believe given my early statement about the concept of arranged marriages, but I am a believer. That belief is second only to my devotion to the Soul King and the Gote, so no, I will do anything I can to see you two together. Trust me, Izuku, let me help you. Izuku sighed and grinned, saying, I don't think you can help, but I'll trust you, cousin. Izuku checked the time on his phone and said, we should head back, it's almost time for lunch, and I have a bento just for my pony. Abara laughed, and the two hurried back to Aldera's roof. Izuku hid behind the smaller girl and said, come on pony, let me take a look. That Gikken is clearly unique, and I need to know how. They arrived to find Reiko and Pony arguing. Leave her alone, Rei. She doesn't want to be poked and prodded, Pony scowled while stomping her foot. Reiko nodded. Exactly, Gikken aren't designed to want, or need, or do anything beyond basic maintenance of a Gigai and whatever they're told to do. This one is special, and I have to know why. As Izuku landed in front of Pony, the roof suddenly became unbearably hot and the pressure increased dramatically. He stood at full height, his eyes burning with rage, staring down Reiko and saying, you will not, and if I catch you harassing her again, I'll really get angry. Reiko, who had never seen this side of Izuku before, staggered back in disbelief. Before Pony came along, it was normal to feel annoyed or frustrated, but this felt more sinister, as if he might actually kill her. Reiko stammered, I'm sorry Oni-chan. I took notes like you asked, but Riri noticed I wasn't you, and Pony-chan tried to protect me, but, I'm so sorry, but was startled out of her panic when she saw the Gikken inside Izuku's body practically run into Izuku's arms. After giving Reiko a, are you satisfied look, Izuku turns to face Izuka and says, it's okay now, Izuka. I'm here, I'll protect you. Did you name your Gikken after yourself? That's a little vain, Abara chuckled. Izuka chose her own name, so leave her alone girls, Pony growled. I'm sorry I scared you last night. I promise, I'll protect you too. Pony approached Izuku and gave her a hug. Izuka grinned. You were right, Oni-chan. Pony-chan is really nice and strong. I'm happy she came. You're a lot happier now. Pony grinned and said, I'm glad I came too. Your brother is an amazing guy, while Izuku flushed. Now that we're all here, I can finally let everyone know about updates to our mission, Abara said, giving a single clap of her hands. I can leave if you want. I'm not exactly part of the team, Izuku said, turning away. Abara laughed as Pony continued to hold on to him. Don't be silly, cousin. Of course you're part of the team. When we get back I want our success to show that you're ready for immediate placement, and with as much power and control as you've got you could easily become a lieutenant or third seat while you get used to how we do things. Izuku murmured, I can't go to Soul Society though. I'm all my mom has, and I won't abandon her, like my father did. Abara paled, before her face scrunched up. That's one of the reasons interworld relationships are discouraged. Izuku, you have to realize, once you mature to your physical peak it will be incredibly hard to maintain this life. You'll almost completely stop aging, and if you stay, you'll have to watch her wither away and die slowly unable to do anything about it. Is that really something you're prepared to do? Izuku was distracted and turned to the other women. So, here's the news I promised you earlier girls. Just after Pony left I got the chance to be promoted to the 20th seat. Apparently, Juin wanted to retire from active service to spend more time with his grandchildren, and he suggested that I be his replacement. Unfortunately a few days ago, Lorna and Vanna were on a recon mission in Kyoto, and were killed by a hollow we call Minoreth. Not a number, an actual name, Izuku said, cocking his head. I'm surprised. Abara's expression widened. Yes, Izuku, this monster has earned a name. Any hollow strong enough to kill a Soul Reaper eventually gets one, especially if it eats a seated officer, much less two. Abara's face became furious. I swear I'll kill this horned monster if I ever find it, just like every hollow that dares step foot in this world or Soul Society. This thing is on my kill list. Just like Serpentia, Borax, Conquestor, and that foul wolf. Izuku looked pale. I don't think I've heard of the others, but Conquestor is gone. Abara looked up and down. How would you know that? Nobody has seen it in nearly 10 years. Not since it attacked Pony's farm, and got away. Izuku grumbled, that's because I killed him. Big guy, 6 gorilla-like arms, bad breath, and a bird mask like a plague doctor or toucan. Yeah, he was the first hollow I ever killed, so he's hard to forget. Izuku nodded in agreement as Reiko blinked and opened her book to reveal an image of Conquestor. That's incredible, Abara smiled. In order to complete a report, please let me know when and how it occurred. Izuku sighed. I spoke with Pony on our first date, and she told me about what happened to her. She smiled back at me, telling him it was okay. Since it attacked a friend and me shortly after, I can only assume that the Garganta it escaped through opened up in the forest close by. I defeated it, but my friend was killed. Yes, but it required everything I had at the moment. No one can ever be harmed by that monster again. What's a Garganta? Reiko asked, looking perplexed. Izuku said, a hole between dimensions like your Senkaimon gates, before Abara could respond. Mano's grade hollows move around thanks to them. Well said, cousin, Abara said, nodding. You seem to have studied our adversaries for a long time. What do you think Minorath can accomplish, given that it is meant to be an Ejuka? After giving it some thought, Izuku asked, is it possible to view the report on it? Izuku looked at the papers and sighed, looks like a brawler type, all brawn with little brains. Abara nodded and took a few papers from a bag she had left in a corner while she was waiting earlier. In that case, he probably knows Bala, Sonito, and Sero. He is fast and strong, and he could actually be able to fight if he had increased endurance even for an Ejuka. Abara was looking worried as Izuku felt a blow to his head, and Reiko appeared prepared to strike Izuku on top of his head once more as she said, you were mumbling again, Izuku. I believed you had broken that habit. Embarrassed, Izuku turned away and said, I did. It was merely a slip. Abara, you won't need to worry about it just yet because it won't come here. And why's that? Abara asked, crossing her arms. First of all, it's young, Izuku said, pointing to various aspects of the scene's enclosed photos. Likely only existed for a few days as an Ejuka. The damage it caused shows that it lacked control and was still adjusting to its power. Second, since most hollows don't hold back, assuming it wasn't, and considering the depth of the impacts, the hunter will serve as a warning. It would be foolish to attempt hunting in a stronger hollow's territory since hollows of this strength establish territories. That is merely begging to be eaten. How do you know so much? Reiko asked, tilting her head as Abara frowned. Rei, you know I'm always trying to get better and I can make myself almost imperceptible to being sensed, Izuku grinned. One of the hollows I've been tracking for a while is the hunter, but he actively defends other souls and has never harmed anyone besides other hollows. I was able to gain a lot of strength by observing him. My fast movement is actually inspired by his, which is why it has such a distinctive sound. Abara frowned even more, saying, you shouldn't give the hunter so much credit if I'm correct about who it is. It is a monstrous creature that ought to be exterminated. While the others appeared concerned, Reiko simply looked perplexed. Bara, why, who do you suppose he is? The wolf that killed and ate Hisashi. Lobo, Abara sighed. Although I haven't seen it since, I know it's still there, and it would make a lot of sense if it turned into an Ejuka. We should have been searching for a humanoid wolf instead of a beastly one. I'll kill it if I'm correct, even if it means dying in the process. When the news hit Izuku hard, Pony felt his Ryutsu shift because she was so close, but the others didn't. When Pony saw the storm threatening to breach his control, he grabbed everyone's attention and said, I think we should take a few minutes to eat before the lunch break is over. Abara returned to her charming expression, saying, oh, you're correct, I'm really sorry, go ahead, please. Unfortunately, I forgot to bring anything, but I'll get it later. It is not significant. Izuka stood up and firmly shook her head, saying, no, Ibi ought to eat as well. Can I give her some of my snacks, Oni-chan? Pony responded on Izuku's behalf since his thoughts were elsewhere. Izuka, that's very kind of you. What sort of snacks are you carrying? Oni-chan made you another bento this morning, Pony-chan, but you can try one too if you want. Izuka smiled as she hurried over to Izuku's bag and began removing a sealed container that smoked slightly when opened, containing what appeared to be 24 mochi, but they didn't look right. What are they exactly? Reiko asked, tilting her head. Izuka laughed and said, Heart's Desire, or Hatsu Dazaya, is Oni-chan's special treat. They're incredible. They are incredibly satisfying and never taste the same twice. You can get enough energy from 2 for the entire day. I adore them, but Oni-chan typically only produces a dozen each month. She popped one in her mouth and gave the other girls a cute little wiggle of delight before holding them out to them. After a brief moment of silence, Pony reached over and tried one first, then began to sob. That's impossible. That reminded me of my mother's steamed meat buns. Pony grabbed another and exclaimed, gravy and biscuits from Papa. My green tea cakes. Abara dropped to his knees after taking one too. Green tea cakes? Reiko asked, glancing at Abara in confusion. They were my favorite, Abara said with a nostalgic nod. When my father and I got together for lunch, my mother would prepare these for us. Abara trembled and Reiko embraced her. I looked everywhere trying to figure out how she made them, but they never tasted quite right. Izuku had slipped into a garganta when no one was looking, so no one saw him vanish or felt the explosion of Ryutsu as his emotions boiled over. This was not his first visit to the sandy wasteland that was Wako Mundo, but he only went there when he needed a release. When the anger and confusion finally became too much to handle, Izuku screamed into the desert sky, releasing a wave of crushing Ryutsu in the form of a hollow howl and a massive green beam of compressed destruction, a Sero, which could be seen for hundreds of miles. Izuku collapsed to his knees as his roar came to an end, and he heard Lobo say, I never once lied to you. That girl isn't entirely incorrect, but she also isn't entirely correct. Izuku snarled, No, what a bastard you are. Did you kill my father? You're not going to dance around this. No, I didn't kill him, but I did eat him, Lobo sighed. Izuku, did you know that a soul can transform a hollow when it consumes it? If one is strong enough, they can merge with the hollow rather than fade away, though this is uncommon and the soul must be similarly powerful. I was a beast before I battled Hisashi, only motivated by the desire to grow stronger. Her brief report omits the fact that we were on the verge of killing each other before I was fortunate. I ultimately fled because I was too injured to fight him back up. I ended up in those woods, but I had no idea where I was running to. I didn't fully comprehend until I merged with you. His last wish was to ensure your mother's safety. I genuinely doubt that he was aware of your existence. Growling, Izuku said, How would you know? I know, Lobo chuckled, because he would have sacrificed everything to keep you safe if he had known. He would be very proud of you and would have loved you. I am aware of this. By the time we merged, I knew why I couldn't bring myself to hurt you or abandon you when we first met. You are my greatest pride, my son, and my dog. We are connected because Hisashi brought us together. I will continue to take care of you and love you as a father should, so feel free to hate me if that's what you need. No matter what, I'll keep encouraging you to pursue your goals and get stronger. Izuku sat there with 1,000 ideas and emotions racing through his head, but he made up his mind. I need time to figure out how to feel, he stammered in a whisper. Do I despise you? Do you think I love you? Are you my dad, or the killer of my father? I require time. Izuku whispered, of course, pup, as he felt Lobo's presence embrace him as tightly as possible. I wouldn't, however, do it here. Consider your base of operations. The ghosts could use your comforting presence, and it's quiet. Yeah, you're right, Izuku sniffed. Thank you. Izuku then left the world of the living, oblivious to the consequences of his actions. Everyone had a difficult month after that. Once more, Izuku appeared aloof. The hunter was nowhere to be seen, but hollow attacks were increasing. Without him, Musudafu was eerily silent, and all of a sudden, the three Reapers were the only remaining line of defense. The three girls were aware that Izuku was upset about something, and Abara appeared to think it was the possibility that the hollow he had learned so much from was the monster that killed his father. However, only Pony was aware of the truth, and she was the one who was most concerned. In order to get him out of his funk, Pony made the other two stay behind. Pony chose to play dirty and speak with Itsuka because Izuku would not give her another chance. His pupils also observed the slight change in their master's disposition. In addition to being empathetic and knowledgeable, he was also depressed and reclusive. Although it was smaller and flickering, his fire was still burning. They were optimistic when Itsuka entered with a cheeky smile. They were taken aback when she said, Midoriya Dono, you have a new challenger. Get ready. She was the one who could return him to his typical rage. Izuku sighed. I'm not in the mood, Itsuka. Can I just defer to my best student? They saw a short, horned blonde enter the room with a white guy and an irate expression, saying, "No, you cannot. Izuku Midoriya, I challenge you specifically. I'm not leaving until you fight me." Itsuka laughed. "You heard her, Izu. I don't know what you did, but this little blondie has a bone to pick with you." "Fine. You win, Tsunotori." Izuku sighed, and the students retreated to create space while they observed their sensei and the challenger assuming their positions. They started fighting under Itsuka's refereeing, but to the students' astonishment, the blonde wasn't using a typical bokken. Rather, she possessed two extremely short wooden blades that resembled knives, and Izuku never closed his eyes. Izuku fought silently, something they had never seen anyone do before, much less force their sensei to take things seriously. There were no hints, remarks, or tips, just a fierce battle between two formidable fighters that surprised even Itsuka. Block after block, strike after strike, they performed a skillful dance while grinning broadly at each other until Izuku eventually defeated Pony. Izuku drove Pony to the ground by knocking her blades aside, but she didn't appear upset or disturbed. Rather, her eyes had an expression akin to excitement. Pony accepted his offer to help her up when he reached down, but she didn't simply get back up. Everyone watched as the blonde continued to move until she crashed into Izuku's face, kissing him so passionately that everyone but Izuku froze. Pleasure seemed to melt him. His heart was burning with a new kind of hunger. "You won the spar, but I won a greater prize. Talk to me, please. Stop shutting me out." Pony grinned as they parted ways. Itsuka kicked him over. "Get out. How dare you physically assault one of our instructors in front of me? This was not the deal, you crazy bit." Itsuka felt the temperature in the room rise as Izuku raised a hand and said, "Itsuka, I would be very careful what you call her. She didn't assault me, she was just giving me a reward for winning. One I happily accept." Itsuka appeared startled and perplexed. Izu was being an evasive ass, and refused to talk to me about what was wrong, so as his girlfriend, I took drastic measures. "Sorry, I didn't tell you everything, but I needed to convince you to let me do this, and I didn't want you to think I was just a crazy stalker or something." Izuku smirked at Itsuka and said, "How about this? Why don't you two spar next? I think it will help you two get on the same page." Izuku grinned and drew Pony close, saying, "Crazy, yes. Stalker, no, thank you, my ram. I needed that." Itsuka laughed. "Why would I do that? Didn't she just declare herself your girlfriend? Are you really that big of an ass that you want me to kick her out?" That made Izuku laugh, saying, "Suki, that's only if you win, and I honestly don't think you will." Pony exhaled. "Now, Izu, I don't want to embarrass your big sister in her own dojo. That would be rude, and a terrible first impression." Itsuka's gaze widened. "Okay, half pint. You've got your match, but when you lose I want you to stay away from my dojo and my Izuku. I don't care how good you are with a blade, nobody's taking my little bro away from me without a fight. Now I want a clean match. No hair pulling, or eye gouging, but quirks are allowed. Now, fight," Izuku said, taking Itsuka's place. Pony launched a strong right straight to start the attack, but Itsuka sidestepped it. Itsuka attempted to take the initiative by preparing a counterpunch to Pony's stomach, but Pony was able to twist it into the tiniest of glancing blows. Pony was able to deliver a roundhouse kick to Itsuka's side as part of the twist, but it was insignificant compared to the glancing blow she received. Itsuka's lip began to twitch in frustration as Pony grinned and said, "Your form is great, Kendo-chan, but you need to relax." She rushed toward Pony with a barrage of punches that Pony seemed to effortlessly dodge until Itsuka smirked. Her stance changed slightly, and a jab that Pony believed she dodged suddenly slammed into her hip as the fist suddenly grew massive. Itsuka grinned and said, "How was that? Still want to tease and make jokes? Izuku might be too nice to tell you to leave, but I will. If you can't even land a solid hit, you should get lost, and stop playing with his heart." Pony was shakily getting up off the ground. Pony took a deep breath and adjusted her posture. "Maybe you're right, he is too good for me, but I won't stop fighting. I've been thinking about it all month, and I finally got my priorities straightened out. I love him, and I'm going to fight for him. I won't be stopped. I'll get stronger until I can stand on equal ground with him, and then I'll go even further. I'm not good enough now, but I'll get there, or die trying." While he watched the match, Kamakiri slipped over to speak with Izuku and discovered his sensei grinning as the two young women charged to continue their match. Even though Kamakiri had been spending twice a week with the Green Team for the past month and had engaged in numerous fights with him, he had never once witnessed Izuku appear so happy, excited, or ecstatic. It almost made the mantis envious, though Kamakiri wasn't sure what to call it. Izuku continued without changing his direction when he heard his student laugh, saying, "Yes, Kama-san. You know I encourage questions. Sometimes we both learn something from the conversation." Rolling his eyes, Kamakiri said, "I never took you as the two-timing sort." Izuku's expression darkened as he said, "I'm going to act like you didn't just imply that I was anything but faithful." Kamakiri barked, "Act any way you like. We both know I'm not strong enough to stop you, but we also know you can't keep it up anymore now that your girlfriends know about each other." Izuku took a deep breath. "Kendo and I are not together. Was there a time, years ago when we tried it out? Yes, but we agreed we weren't what each other wanted. I'm a one-woman man and so is she." Kamakiri chuckled, "Then why is she so invested in your love life?" "Because this whole sibling thing is ridiculous, and you're not fooling anyone, cheater." Izuku sighed, "You have no idea what you're talking about, and I'd stop crying if you don't want to find out just how many laps I can make you run. Itsuka will never be interested in me like that, now drop it." They heard a roar as Pony ducked under an enlarged punch and lifted Itsuka off the ground with a powerful uppercut that went straight into her jaw. Pony could see Itsuka was only momentarily stunned and still very conscious even as she fell. Pony then drove Itsuka into the mat with a palm strike to her sternum, knowing she would bounce back quickly. Itsuka attempted to roll away, but Pony persisted in applying stomping kicks. Itsuka swiftly pinned the smaller girl underneath Pony after spotting an opening and sweeping her other leg. Pony looked up and noticed something unexpected. Itsuka was beginning to breathe more heavily and her eyes were beginning to blow out, but it wasn't because she was out of breath. Pony was able to flip the pin and win because Itsuka's pin wasn't as strong as her earlier attacks, but that just seemed to make things worse. With her eyes beseeching and her body nearly vibrating, Itsuka whispered, too softly for anyone to hear except Pony and Izuku, "Do it. Take whatever you want, take me, claim your prize." Izuku called the match at that point. Itsuka appeared to break out of her heated reverie and attempt to turn away in embarrassment, but Pony held her with an understanding gaze. Izuku saw the situation and made sure no one could see or disturb the three by clearing the room and locking it. Itsuka simply crawled away, hugging herself in shame, after Pony finally let her go. However, she soon sensed Izuku's warm, reassuring presence, his arms spread wide, an invitation. Itsuka accepted the invitation as she broke down and sobbed, pleading with Izuku to pardon her, but Izuku simply held her and gave her back rubs. Izuku smiled and comforted her. "It's okay, Suki. I still don't judge you for what you like, and honestly I can't blame you. Pony might be small, but she's strong and beautiful. She managed to bulldoze her way into my heart, so I'd be a hypocrite if I got mad. I'm sorry for tempting you like that." Pony came closer but didn't crowd them. "I'm not mad either. I'll admit I'm surprised, but I think I understand. It's hard being strong, being responsible, in control all the time, and stuck in a cage of others' needs. Sometimes, you just wish someone else would take control, and free you from that cage." Shuddered. "I'm the strongest girl in my school. Have been for most of my life. I love getting stronger. Pushing myself past my limits is a rush, but because of that, I'm not desirable. I couldn't care less what boys think, but other girls, I'm either a brute or a freak. Even the other gym rats like me don't find me appealing. I'm just a trainer, a big sister, or someone to confide in, but I can't tell anyone about this. I'm sorry Sunotori-chan, I couldn't help it. I want, but it has to be real. If I don't fight back it just feels cheap and dirty, and then you actually did it and, again. What's wrong with me? Why can't I just be normal?" At that moment, Itsuka was tightly hugged by Pony and Izuku. Pony gave her a stern but tender look. "Kendo-chan, Itsuka, there's nothing wrong with you. You're strong, smart, and beautiful, just like me." Pony winked and began to laugh. "So what if you like what you like? It doesn't make you any less normal. I might not be your soulmate, but she's out there, and I'm going to tell you a secret. I know at least 20 women stronger than me back home. You will find her, the one who will love you, and be just as happy as you to make your fantasies come true. You just need to be patient. I never thought I'd find my person, but then I met Izuku, and everything just clicked. Until you find her, I'll train with you to get even stronger, but I'm never going to be who you're looking for, okay?" Izuku, You'd better treat this girl right, or I'm going to find a way to beat you up. Am I clear? Itsuka sniffled and nodded. Izuku murmured, don't worry Suki. I'd die for her, anything for my ram. The UA entrance exam is in 11 months. You'd better train hard little bro. Failure is not the battle fist way. Itsuka scoffed, as if. Nobody is that strong. Well, maybe All Might or Stars and Stripes, but they're heroes. She wiped her face to hide as much of her breakdown as possible. Izuku laughed and said, that's right, Suki-Nisan, and UA is home to some of the strongest up-and-comers in the country. I'm sure you'll find a cute girl to step on you there. The three teenagers got to their feet. Itsuka was blushing. Shut up, I'm not a pervert, but thanks Izu. You're a great guy. As she seized Izuku and held him close, Pony gave Itsuka a wink and said, mine. You said I could take him if I won. I'll share, but he's my Izu now. Itsuka chuckled, well you better keep your guard up then. If you slip, and I beat you, I'll take him back. Now come on you little spitfire. I have a mini fridge in the girls' locker room that's only for female staff, and I figure I owe my future sister-in-law a cold sweet tea or bottle of water after that spar. Quick, Izuku help, she's trying to offer me a drink and get me naked. Save me, I'm too cute for my own good. She'll surely have her way with me, Pony said, blushing and turning away with a smile. Izuku laughed, can I watch? That sounds like a once-in-a-lifetime show, my feisty ram. Pony followed Itsuka into the women's locker room as if nothing had happened, but Itsuka rolled her eyes and said, pair a perverts, both of ya. Last time I tried to be nice. You're lucky to have them, pup. Love them while you can. Life is short for some, and you never know when it can end. Izuku grimaced and prepared for school after cleaning himself up. Izuku gradually stopped fleeing from the Reaper trio over the course of the following week, and they began spending more time together. Izuku continued to vanish frequently, but the three eventually discovered his reason. In addition to helping many spirits with unresolved business in exchange for bank account numbers, Izuku worked 6 part-time jobs. Was it ethical? No, but when asked about it Izuku grumbled, the dead have no way to access the money they leave behind, and I only empty the accounts of those without living relatives. I'm not a monster, and sometimes unfinished business can get expensive. Case in point, I met a woman who couldn't move on until she knew her orphan daughter would be taken care of. I set up an anonymous trust to make sure she had a home, food, and the possibility of going to college. None of that was cheap, so if I have to transfer a few thousand yen from some cheapskate that thought their money would keep them warm, I'll do it. It was also the reason Izuku spent so much time performing subpar work in the revelation of his deal with Detective Tsukauchi. Izuku's unexpected friendship with notorious villain Kendo Rappa allowed him to work as an informant. One morning when he was 10 years old, Izuku happened to run into him while jogging. Izuku jumped them because he believed the man would be jumped, and he won. He was offered a job by Rappa, who thought the situation was hilarious. If the man was telling the truth, Izuku liked him, but it was really helpful to have a detective nearby to support Izuku when he attempted to enter UA. Unfortunately, at that time, Tsukauchi needed his assistance with another issue. The police were unable to determine how or why a number of teenagers in his area were going missing, but the fact that most of them were teenage girls didn't make the detective feel good. Pony also adopted a new identity as Lady Ram, Entei's number 2, since she refused to leave and actively began assisting Izuku with some of his jobs so she could spend more time with her boyfriend. At first, Pony was nervous about it, but it was strangely empowering to hide behind the ram skull mask. Abara was furious when she first saw it, but after they clarified that it wasn't a real hollow mask, she accepted it as a training opportunity, and providing Izuku with valuable backup. The frequency with which Pony ended up spending the night with Izuku was something Abara refused to accept. It was all harmless, and most of the time Pony just ended up napping on his chest after a long day at work, but Abara wasn't pleased whether it was on Inko's couch or not. At the moment, they were attempting a different strategy to find out what was happening with the teenagers who had gone missing. Abara and Izuku were observing Reiko and Pony from above as they pretended to be typical, vulnerable, teenagers hanging out at different ends of the neighborhood mall. Although they theoretically fit the pattern, neither Izuku nor Abara found it appealing. In the end, both brunettes spent 4 hours merely observing and waiting while their victim went about having a good time. At one point, Abara became enraged and Izuku blushed when the two girls met and entered a specific store. The store in question had a lingerie section in the back, but it was just one of many clothing stores. As a result, Izuku had to work extremely hard to avoid getting a nosebleed at Pony in a number of riskier outfits, in addition to having to watch the other greenettes try on undoubtedly adorable outfits. Izuku repeatedly witnessed Reiko turn around and flush toward Abara, but his cousin never appeared to share his problems with Desire. To Abara's annoyance, the pair eventually parted ways to resume their vulnerable solo excursions, but not before purchasing a few new clothes. Reiko went to begin her favorite activity, which is observing people and looking for new items to add to her expanding collection. In contrast, Pony flew around like a honeybee, surrounded by manga, shiny accessories, training gear, blades, and blade care products. Izuku was only pleased by the eclectic ride. He wouldn't alter a thing about the cute little whirlwind because he loved her. A dark-haired boy abruptly grabbed Reiko as the foursome was about to give up and try again another day. Reiko looked scared and said, "Yanagi. Thank Kami. You have to help me. Something's after me and it just keeps coming. I hear it slithering in the dark. Please, Yanagi, you gotta help me." Reiko took a moment to recognize the boy, but after looking past the eye bags and rumpled clothing, she tilted her head and asked, "Dichi?" Unfortunately, things took a turn for the worse at that point. Tentacles with snake-like heads emerged from a few shadows, coiled around Reiko, and caught Dichi in one of their fangs. Abara attempted to strike and cut off a few tentacles, but she was soon overpowered and had to watch as Reiko was pulled into a shadow. However, the hollow appeared to be hurt by the act of severing the tentacles because it roared in agony, which Pony and Izuku heard along with everyone else in the mall, causing a stampede. Izuku attempted to approach Pony, but she yelled at him to save Reiko first, and even though he detested it, he followed her instructions. Izuku rushed to Abara and repelled the tentacles before they could kill or ensnare her as well. However, they all appeared to flee, leaving both Reapers snarling. Abara grasped the collar of Izuku. "Where were you? I know a hollow of that level shouldn't have been a problem for you, so why didn't you save her? You didn't even release your Zanpakuto. Be happy I didn't, cousin. If I had, every soul in this mall, including you, would have been cremated. Do not lecture or question me, Abara. You have no idea what I'm capable of, and you have no right to judge. You're supposed to be a seated officer. Why didn't you stop it yourself?" Izuku said with a sigh of calm, while Abara nodded. "This doesn't matter. Reiko is gone. We need to reunite with Pony and come up with a plan to save our bookworm." They searched for Pony together, but she had also vanished. Izuku was not pleased with the news, much to Abara's dismay. Abara felt Izuku's spirit pressing down on him again, but this time it was much more intense. Emerald lightning arched up and down his arms, pleading for release as flames licked at his feet, turning the concrete and asphalt below into molten tar and slag. He seemed to explode with a crack of thunder as he rocketed up, and at the top of his leap, it was as if a second sun had just appeared. Then it condensed, an emerald ball of flaming death. Izuku drew it all back in his sclera, making it completely black, so that Abara couldn't see it from that distance. He vowed that whoever this hollow was, he would love feeling its bones crunch as he touched his ram. In other places, Pony and Abara were unable to break free from their Gigai and were enveloped in shadows. The shorter girl was enraged that she had been so weak, but neither was harmed. It was only partially helpful when Reiko reassured her that everything would be alright and that Izuku and Abara would soon arrive to eliminate this hollow degenerate. "Neither of you tasty morsels are going to escape me again. Now that I've taken care of Dichi, nobody will be able to stop me from having my fun." The Snakatopus licked its lips and glared at Reiko. "You little Yanagi have been on my list for a long time. I'll enjoy exploring every inch of your pale body, maybe I'll even show you what you missed out on when you rejected me, before I take my time eating you as slowly as possible. I so enjoy hearing my prey moan in ecstasy just before their souls become mine to play with." "I think not, you slimy prick. You're dead. As soon as Izuku gets here he'll," yelled Pony as she stepped in front of her bewildered friend. "Don't you dare talk about that overinflated tool, you slut." The snake Dapus spit out a cloud of sickly yellow smoke into the room, and soon both girls were forced back into unconsciousness. "Compared to you, Yanagi is in for heaven. I know what he plans to do with you, and you'll wish I had kept you by the time he's done. I can't wait to see that little upstart finally get what he deserves as he watches you beg for death." Before anything more could happen, they silently prayed that their teammates would save them in their last moments. They started working after Izuku calmed down and went back to Abara with an expression of regret for his outburst. Abara shared a secret that she had thought of the previous evening when they were by themselves. In the unlikely event that someone did manage to escape, tracking seals were frequently placed on Gote prisoners. In light of this, Reiko had offered to allow Abara to wear one on her for a short time in case they were separated, and Abara accepted since they were unsure of the girl's abduction method. Her seal would hopefully be sufficient, but it wouldn't be nearly as strong as what Squad 2 used. It took several hours to track the seal, and by the time they approached the tiny, deserted warehouse it led them to, it was getting late. Abara sensed the presence of at least 2 hollows, but for Izuku, this place made his hollow salivate and repulsed him. With Abara around, he had to control his hollow impulses because the pain, sadness, and despair that pervaded this place were so strong that he could smell them from blocks away. Izuku crept closer and attempted to break away, but Abara refused to let it happen. She believed that removing the hollow from the mall would require both of them, and it felt even more powerful for whoever the other hollow was. As soon as they were inside, they heard the doors slam shut, enveloping themselves in pitch-black darkness to keep anyone from fleeing. A laughing voice that Izuku claimed to have heard before emerged from all around them. "Greetings from my playground of screams and moans, little reapers. Don't worry, Lady Shinigami. I'm sure you and I can find our own pleasure once I've completed my business with Midoriya. Enjoy a little time with my harem in the interim, though. For me, they will be delighted to get you all warm and fuzzy." The hollow laughed as Izuku hissed, "Tokomaiki, what happened to you? I knew you were a bit of a pervert, but this is a couple dozen levels beyond deprived. Not to mention, Dichi was your best friend. How could you toy with him like that?" A half-dozen pale doll-like figures in ripped and tattered clothing emerged from the shadows. They were all women, but the masks that had been imposed on them made it impossible to identify them as such. All of them were wearing twisted expressions of euphoric bliss. As they engaged in a ferocious, twisted mockery of ballet, the voice reappeared. "Tokomaiki is no longer with us. As the Defiler, I have been reborn. I was spared that agony by my master. I'm no longer a rich prick's errand boy, living off his scraps like a parasite. Anytime I want, I can have whoever I want." He laughs. "And I'm craving a cute little nerd right now. I wanted you to hear her beg, even though I don't usually wait this long to taste my food. Listen to her groan, and realize that you can't stop me. Although I would love to taste your whore, she is not mine. There won't be much of little Unagi left to save, so hurry up, Reapers." He chuckled even more, then stopped talking. Abara's face darkened as she whipped her Zanpakuto, saying, "Fushinko Shao Baseo, Suru no Kogo. Punish the faithless, Vine Empress." In an explosion of rose petals and a flash of green light, Abara's blade transformed into a cat o' 9 tails with 9 green vine tails covered in red thorns and a grip made of sturdy bark. Abara transformed into a whirling blade of destruction after releasing her blade, using one hand to cast Keto spells and the other to retaliate. Her every blow was interspersed with an oath to grant the victims the peace they had been denied and a prayer for them. Izuku wanted to assist, but given how serious the situation was, he had to make a decision. Abara nodded, and Izuku ran up a flight of stairs and deeper into the warehouse. If he doesn't find his friend and girlfriend quickly, he might become so irate that he sets Kyoto on fire. Izuku felt a heavy hoofed foot slam into his abdomen and send him through the wall just as he was about to turn a corner. A buff man in a white shihakusuka was grinning at Izuku as he looked down from the new hole in the second floor. Izuku could sense his hollow Ryutsu, but he might have been mistaken for a Soul Reaper if not for the one bullhorn mask piece on his head and the bone nose ring. He didn't know what or who the man was, but it was obvious that he wasn't your typical Reaper or hollow. "Hello again, Entei. It's nice to finally see you face to face, but my boss wants you out of the way, and I'm happy to oblige. This time you'll be the one with a busted neck," the man said with a laugh that Izuku recognized. "That wasn't very nice. Now I'll have to create another harem to meet my needs. Well, at least I'll have a solid start, once I strip you and little Unagi here of your wills to fight," the beast said, emerging from a dark corner on the ceiling as Abara had just finished cleaning Defiler's poor victims inside. Abara grumbled, "Let my friend go, you disgusting pervert. Do so, and maybe the Soul King will take pity on your blackened soul." Defiler chuckled, "I don't think so." To Unagi's horror, he licked her cheek with his tongue, causing her to whimper and shudder in disgust. "I knew she would be sweet, but I didn't expect this. So much repressed longing, sadness, and pain. It's positively addicting. I can't wait until I can play with you both. Maybe I'll take turns, Make each of you watch as I have my fun. Really drive home the horror and guilt. Defiler's eyes flashed, and he gave a perverse growl, saying, I'm salivating already. A pair of tentacles attempted to ambush and immobilize Abara, but she quickly responded. The thorns sliced deep and flayed pieces of Ryutsu off the tentacles, causing them to recoil as they brought her Suru no Kogo down. Abara attempted to push them farther back with another spell that fired a blast of light with her other hand, but she was unsuccessful. Not that it mattered. The flash had been sufficient to temporarily drive out the shadows, and in that moment, whatever the Hollow had been using to extend his tentacles through the darkness came to an end, severing them anyhow. Abara used the opportunity to get ready for her counterattack as the Hollow roared in rage. After saying a brief prayer, Abara slammed her Suru no Kogo into the ground and exclaimed, Kui Eritame no Machiuchi. Repentant lashes. Thorned vines exploded from the floor all over the room, slashing at his tentacles as well as the Hollow. Abara caught Yanagi before she could fall to the ground by sprinting forward and leaving her weapon fixed to the ground. You bitch. I offer you pleasure and you give me pain. Forget the niceties, I'm going to swallow your soul whole. Defiler yells in anguish and fury. The Hollow staggered back in agony as he stumbled forward on the stumps of his regenerating tentacles, but before he could attack, both girls yelled, Shakaho. 2 fireballs swirled out of their palms and smashed into one big fireball that smashed into Defiler's mask, shattering it. A pair of skeletal doors appeared behind him, opened, and he fell inside before they slammed shut again and vanished. Izuku was guiding the strange Hollow man outside as far away from the others as he could. He had to put up with taunts about his cowardice, how pathetic he was, and the occasional remark about how he would eventually get to claim the little filly, and show her what a real man looks like. Izuku turned abruptly while forming his hollow mask, ignoring everything else until he decided they were far enough away. Izuku quickly moved forward with both blades drawn after using the Hollow's final remark to determine his direction. After drawing his own blade, the Hollow roared, Pisodirlos planos, martillo de bui. Stomp them flat, ox hammer. And laughed, finally, I thought you'd never stop running like a bitch. Izuku attempted to advance but was thwarted by a pair of hammer-like fists. Gazing into his opponent's now masked face, he mockingly remarked, Minotaurus, I should have known. He chuckled, actually it's Minorath now. You snapped my neck, but my new boss saved me. Made me stronger than ever, so now I can return the favor. Can't turn your whore into a brood mare anymore, but don't worry, I fuck her into paste for you later, so she won't miss you long. With a growl, Izuku put his hollow Zanpakuto back in its sheath. Tsuki ni Hoyo, Entei. Howl at the moon, Flame Emperor. Izuku said, causing his remaining blade to burst into emerald fire before Minorath could make a mocking remark. Minorath felt a deep gash burn across his chest as an emerald Nodaki suddenly emerged from the flames, causing the bull to groan in agony. The ground became jagged from repeated hammer blows, and the buildings around them started to melt and scorch. Izuku's mask was broken and his arm was broken by Minorath's fortunate blow to his face and arm, but Minorath was in much worse shape. His midsection was crisscrossed with deep gashes and burning cuts, and one arm now lay on the asphalt, discarded and abandoned. Damn it, fuck, you get to live a little longer, but don't let it go to your head before I can rip it off and mount it on my wall. I'll be back and next time, you're dead. Minorath growled as he stepped back through the black and purple smoky warp that opened behind him just as both fighters were about to deliver their final blows. The warp vanished, leaving Izuku furious for a brief moment before realizing that Pony was more crucial. Izuku barely paused to retrieve his trophy, Minorath's severed arm, and reseal his blade before racing as quickly as he could without hollowfying back to the warehouse. Even though Reiko was clinging to Abara like a lifeline, he was glad to see her unharmed. To Izuku's relief, they soon located Pony, who was still dozing off in a corner. Izuku held Pony in his arms the entire way back to the girl's apartment. This time, he stayed instead of making an excuse to leave before the three had to report in. He simply held Pony, his arms encircling her waist in a protective manner. He had been on the verge of losing her, but that was now behind him. His love was secure. Izuku was not amenable to Abara's attempt to break them up for at least a short while so they could present their report, and the seated officer soon discovered that she could not approach the two without getting burned. Pony thought it was a spring day, but Izuku stuck to his guns and was more than happy to act like a kid. With a surrendered sigh, Reiko made the call to their squad 3 handler. The screen eventually connected, and another woman responded, "This is Squad 3, Seat 13, Tamashi Arata. How may I be of assistance?" Arata tilted her head in recognition of the cuddling pair but remained silent. Izuku spoke first. "My name is Izuku Seikarana. Myself and Squad 6, Seat 18, Abara Shiozaki have a report to give. I understand my status as a non-placed Reaper may cause issues, but this report is too important to stand on ceremony." After tensing up and straightening his posture, Arata nodded and said, "I understand Seikarana-sama. I will receive your report and pass it along to my captain. Beyond that, I'm afraid that is all I can do." The others just kept staring at Izuku after he nodded. It became clear to them that Abara was no longer in charge of them. The young man in front of them, a captain in all but name, had completely replaced her. He explained that one of his contacts had contacted him regarding a series of missing girls, and since the case was in the same city as the recent Minorath sighting, he had agreed to investigate. He gave the relevant information about their attempt to find the culprits and how it had fallen through. Pony took his hand to steady him when she sensed that he was becoming emotional, and Izuku squeezed her hand in gratitude. After that, Shiozaki-san and I followed their backup plan to a warehouse. I will be informing the living police of its location after this briefing, so that we can prevent any further interference from them while my team investigates further. Inside we were attacked by a half-dozen hollow-like beings under the control of an octopus-like hollow of upper Manos or lower Ahunta's strength. It implied they were the remains of the hollow's other victims, but that cannot be confirmed. Given the circumstances, I left Shiozaki to handle our first contacts while I looked for their boss and/or our allies. I will leave the details of what happened after to Shiozaki. While I was searching, I ran into another hollow-like being that identified itself as Minorath. When Arata interrupted, "Seikarana-sama, if you could describe him, this could be a huge break." Everyone was staring at Izuku with bated breath. Izuku exhaled. "About 6 feet pre-transformation and another half a foot post, 260 pre and 340 post in terms of visible weight. The part that bothers me is that in his first form most of his mask was missing with only a single horn and his nose ring remaining. He had a Zanpakuto that he released, and once he did his mask reformed. He fought with powerful gauntlets that seemed able to shake the earth." Arata turned pale. "Not that I'm doubting you, sir, but that is an extreme claim. Do you have any proof?" Izuku reached down and extended the broken arm. "I managed to take this during the resulting fight. He broke mine, but I figured that Squad 12 may be able to use this to track him, so I scooped it up. He escaped through some kind of warp-related quirk, so I'm assuming he has living allies. No further details at this time. If the situation changes, I will submit an addendum or further report with said updates. Seeing as that completes my account, I will make that call. If this bastard is really getting living support, I have to make sure to steer the living authorities away. This is Gote business and they are unprepared for this level of danger." Arata raised her head. "Of course, sir. Proceed as intended. Once I am done receiving Shiozaki-san's account, I will pass this along immediately to the captain. I believe Yanagi-san can handle sending us the evidence. On behalf of Soul Society, thank you for your diligence." Izuku gave a nod and started toward Pony's room. Naturally, Pony supported him and led him until the door was securely closed. "How much of that was bullshit?" Pony asked, giving Izuku a stern look. Izuku raised his hand in patience as he made the call. "Tsukauchi, it's Entei. I'm going to send you an address linked to the missing girl case. The perpetrator is gone, but the girls are all deceased, remains lost. It appears Minotaurus isn't as dead as we thought, and he has a new boss. I almost had him, but he had help escaping. Some misty black portal quirk, I don't know. Regardless, there shouldn't be any more missing girls for the time being, but whomever that asshole's new boss is has to be strong. Mino seems devoted, and he nearly kicked my ass. This case is now black-taped, unless you want a bloodbath on your hands. Fucker broke my arm, so I'll be dark for at least a week. Call if you need clarification. Over and out." After letting out a groan and glancing at Pony, Izuku said, "I told them both what they needed to hear, but this is a shit show. I'm sorry, my ram. I failed you today." After moaning, Pony went back to Izuku's lap and cuddled up to him. "No you didn't, it was just bad luck, but," Izuku said, "I want you to train me. I need to get stronger, and training with you is my best shot." "Okay, I'll do what I can, but I don't know how much I can help," Izuku said, holding her close. "Does this mean I can finally see your sword unsealed?" asked Pony, kissing him. After rolling his eyes, Izuku sighed and said, Entei is fickle and doesn't feel like it yet. What if that's not the sort I'm talking about? Pony winked. Now hold on, little ram. I'm not saying no, but, Izuku blushed. You haven't really fought with Lobo since that day on the roof. I know it's awkward, but he's a part of you too, said Pony. She gave him a final wink. You didn't think I was implying anything dirty, did you? I'll have to know my parents raised a lady. You're going to have to try a lot harder if you want me to even consider anything lewd. With a sly smile, Izuku said, I could always just propose. Not funny. Pony pouted and blushed, but they still cuddled. It's all either highly desired at the moment. When Abara stormed into the room an hour later, ready to lecture, he discovered the two holding each other tightly. Behind her, Reiko sighed with jealousy, they're really cute together. We should let them sleep. You heard Soul Society. They're pissed that we don't have any results to show. Abara exhaled. They've cut our support. Starting tomorrow we'll be on our own until we can show results or are recalled. They set us up with backgrounds, but that's it. We'll have to find a new place to live by the end of the week, and jobs to pay for food. I fear we may be in trouble, Rei. Reiko hugged Abara and said, we'll talk to Izuku in the morning. I'm sure he'll know what to do. He won't let us flounder, but are you really okay with this? Him stepping up and leading us like earlier. Abara grinned broadly, my cousin is a gift from the Soul King. I had my concerns, but I trust him to lead us, so no. I'm fine with this change, and once we've killed that wolf, we can all go back to the Gote together. With strength like his he'll quickly be named a lieutenant or captain, and I love my squad, but, I may put in for a transfer to where they place him. He's one of the only family members I have left, and Soul King willing, I intend to do all I can to protect him. With a smile on her face, Reiko said, maybe I'll join you then. I've enjoyed my time with him. He's a bit rough around the edges, but he never lies to me or misleads me. He's a good friend and I'm happy to have him to depend on. Both girls left the room, leaving the sleeping pair to continue sleeping without knowing what hardships lay ahead.
So this was it for the series. I hope you enjoyed it. To watch more series like this, subscribe to my channel. Till then, bye bye.